I'm psychologist Dr. Bryan Violet, and today I'll be sitting down with my longtime friends from the great state of Utah, three brothers, the Utah Boys. We'll be discussing their love of World of Warcraft, life growing up in a large family, especially in the context of a Mormon faith. We'll be talking about the integration of psychology and faith, what that means for perceptions of suffering, and of course our sinner in a movie, Lawless. This is the Catholic Sinner Show.
We met in 2019.
That's correct.
In the digital space. I know. It feels so long ago. In a digital space, right? We met online. This is the first time that I've ever, we tested before this, but this is the first time I've ever seen what any of you look like.
Yep.
You are three brothers from the great state of Utah. It's bizarre for us to call each other by our actual first names.
Super weird.
Very weird.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew is Django, Logan is Wolverine, so not that strange. We get it. And Dalton is F word, yep. and I'm Boach. And I'm Boach. So throughout this, we're gonna try and call each other by our first names, but we may slip up because of our long history playing together. And I haven't even seen you guys I haven't talked to you guys. I've stopped playing World of Warcraft 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty sad. We miss
it.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think people play?
To escape from reality. Always the community.
So we have escape from reality and the community. Which is it?
Both, for sure. Yeah, I think they're actually a good combination of both.
Yeah.
But what keeps you even if you're escaping and I don't have people to come back to play with the game, I'm not going to keep playing. I'm going to play some other game, or I just won't find time for it. But the reason I find time for it, a huge reason that I love to keep playing is because I get to play with my brothers and my sister. It's freaking awesome.
They got me.
My sister live 4 hours away, and we raid 2 to 3 nights a week, and it feels like we're hanging out 2 to 3 nights a week. It just keeps you coming back.
Yeah,
it's immersive, and it feels like you're not as far away as you actually are.
Yes. Yeah, and you guys are kind of blending the two, right? It's not just, you're not escaping from real life in that sense entirely, because your real life is in the game. Your family is in the game and you're playing together.
Exactly. For sure.
That's cool. When did you guys all start playing together? No,
I think I was the first one to pick this back up. I think I picked it up in 2017. It was just kind of a weird thing. I kind of quit playing video games for the most part. I'd play, me and Dalton would play Destiny, and we'd mess around on that kind of stuff. But games just started getting a little boring to me, and for some reason I felt this pull with World of Warcraft again. So I logged on to retail, which is not the same as classic, and I started messing around. And retail just does not feel like World of Warcraft. It's missing every element that I liked about the game. So I started looking into private servers to go back to classic.
What's the difference? Explain the difference between classic and retail.
So basically retail WoW is everything up to this day. There was the original classic, and then they just kept expansion. That is up to current date. Classic is the first few expansions that they came out with that people ultimately just fell in love with and just have this huge nostalgic feel for it. And they want to go back and relive that nostalgia. So that's me. I wanted to go back and relive, from back in the day, my nostalgia, and just kind of hit it again, right? So I downloaded a private server and started leveling up, and that's actually when I started meeting Freetail. I met Andov, some of our long-term gaming buddies, and fast forward from 2017 to now, we're all still playing together. Most of us. We've just built this huge community of just amazing people and gamers, and it's just awesome that we get to play together each week.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking into how World of Warcraft helps people escape. I don't think the game does an incredible job of transporting you to another world, but I think also there's a way in which you can feel competent. You could feel successful and competent and connect with other people in a way sometimes that you can't in real life. Like
Right.
the world of online gaming, I think, arose because there weren't enough people to play with locally anymore, and
Yeah.
you need somebody to hang out and play video games with. When I was a kid, it was all console local gaming, and then the online world took off, and now you can find someone to play a video game with any time of day. I mean, literally any time of day. Like 3 a.m., you'll be playing with people from the other side of the world, playing World of Warcraft. And I've also always said I don't think, and so this is in the genre, the video game genre of MMORPG. So massive multiplayer online role playing game. So there's MMO, that's the first part. It means lots of people playing together. And then RPG, role playing game. And so that goes all the way back to tabletop role playing games. It's like you take on a character. I don't think these games are very good. Like, I don't think MMORPGs are very good games at all compared to what's out there in the world of video games. Like we've excelled far beyond even the most advanced MMO that's out there today. That's not what keeps people playing. It's the community.
Right. And the thing about
100%.
new games for me is the first thing that they focus on is graphics and not everything else. The first thing they want to do is just be like, we're the newest, coolest game. Look how cool the graphics are. Come play the game. And then you start playing the game and it's just like, there's not a lot here. Like, it looks really cool and the world is awesome, but like, there's not a lot there. Like, the thing about World of Warcraft is there's so much lore. There's so much stuff behind everything that you continue to get re-immersed in the game. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then obviously the community. Yeah. And then the community brings it together. Like, you can play solo up to a certain point, but if you want to do end game content or you want to do this, it kind of forces you in the direction to play with other people.
Yeah. At one point, was it like 12 million subscribers was World of Warcraft at its height?
Highest.
I think they stopped counting around that. Yeah. In Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah. And that was like the third or fourth expansion, probably, which typically it's like an expansion every 2 years, typically. So when we say expansions, so that's like 6 years after the game came out, launched in 2012, I think, right? That was the original 2012, something like that. No,
the like classic was like 2006, I think.
Oh, 2006. Okay.
It's 2004.
Oh, 2004.
Came out 2004, and then it went to so then 2 years. So Wrath came out in, I think, like 2010, 2009, something like that.
Yeah. And so that game, I mean, at one point, 12 million subscribers. I don't think there's any game out there even today that hits that, right? That's not even close.
I don't think so.
So at the height of its popularity, there was a real magic to the early iterations of the game. And then the game sort of fell off over the years because it became more focused on convenience, right?
Yeah.
Like making the game more convenient, easier, right? Because I think gamers got older, and let's be honest, the game is a time sink.
Yeah.
It demands a lot of your time. And as you get older, you have less time, you have other responsibilities. People, my age, I mean, I don't even have time to play, but for a number of years I could still play, but I didn't have the same amount of time to play. So they try and make it easier. You don't have to have the grind of the original game. But in doing that, they ruined the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why.
Yeah, I think it's because they made it less interactive with people too, where it's like, we can't really hang out as much because you can go get that item by yourself now. You don't need a group of 5, or you don't have to go, hey, I'm looking for more people. You can just go grab a dungeon finder. Boom. No talking, no interaction.
Right. Right. And the effect is you don't have people just hanging out together and connecting.
Yep.
Right.
But, like I said, I haven't talked to you guys in 2 years, and
too long, Boat.
I know, but
Dr. Bryan, I'm sorry, dude.
I know, but what I want, but the cool thing to me is like, I could be like, hey guys, you want to come on my podcast? And we got so close during that time that we played that you're like, of course, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's like your gaming community can become closer than some people in your real life outside of the gaming world.
Yeah.
If you're just sitting online with your headphones on and a microphone every single day, sure, you're talking about the game a lot, but once in a while it's going to be like, how's work, man? How's your woman? Yeah. Like and you just over time, because we're social beings, eventually you just connect on a human level.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together it was during COVID, which this game re-releasing Classic during COVID, it couldn't come at a better time for this game, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it was unfortunate what was happening in the world, but us being able to play as much as we did and talk in Discord as much as we did was insane.
Yeah. We should also just say too, if we didn't make it clear so far. So the game came out in 2006, we said, and then in 19, when we all met, they re-released the original version, and that's what Classic was. And it was more popular than the current iteration of the game, which they call retail. That's how much love there was for the original experience.
Yep.
And so since then, they still kind of they're going through the timeline and releasing that initial content over and over again. I'm gonna get a little psychological here, as you guys know. I'm accustomed.
Oh no!
As you know, I'm accustomed to do. So there's different roles in the game, right? They call it the Holy Trinity. There are healers. So if you take damage, if you get hurt by an enemy, healers like heal you. They bring your life back up. There are tanks. Tanks are the ones that absorb all the damage. They get all the attention from the enemies. And the healers basically focus on keeping them alive and keeping them off, what some would argue are the most important roles, which are called DPS. DPS means damage per second. So when you're trying to complete a task, you want to have as much damage per second as you can so that you can defeat the boss or defeat the enemy or complete the challenge as quickly as you can. And in fact, that's what groups measure themselves basically against one another via their DPS, and individuals measure themselves against one another DPS. There's all kinds of software and things in the background that track these things. There's a lot of ego involved. People get, I want to say this in a friendly way, sensitive about their performance. But my question for you guys, what do you think roles, these three roles, and then if you want to go a little deeper and talk about the classes associated with the roles, because there's not just one class, there's different types of character classes that you can play that fit into one of these three roles. What do you think those roles say about people's personalities? Think about yourself. What kind of role do you like to play? What do you prefer? What do you think that says about you?
Dude, I never thought of this. This is weird. Okay.
Dalton, you go first.
Dude, I feel like just on the top of my head, I feel like it doesn't affect. So like, like in real life, if someone was like a supporter or whatever, it's like, maybe they would be going for the healing class, you know what I mean? Kind of like that. But I feel like if they wanted to be like, more aggressive or whatever the case, to where they get a like quote unquote role play in outside of real life, quote, then it's like they get to experience that and be a little bit more aggressive. Where that
you say a person, are you talking about yourself? Are you a nurturer in real life? So you get it all out in the game, damaging people?
See, and I don't know, like no, my brothers would know more than that. I have no idea.
Well, you guys got to comment on this. What do you think? Because you're a DPS typically, right?
Correct.
You're way too selfish of a person to be a healer. We know that.
Yeah.
Logan and Andrew, what do you think it says about Dalton that he likes DPS?
I think Dalton's competitive. I think Dalton's pretty competitive, especially when it comes to video games. I think Dalton's probably the most like competitive person when it comes to video games here out of all of us. He plays a lot of video games, and I think he likes. So I think DPS is probably drawn to him because it's like one of those things in which he can, compete with other people, and not like, I don't think this is like in a bad way or anything like that. I just think that he likes that. I think he likes to be able to see how he's doing relative to other people, and
But is he competitive in real life though?
Yeah, I mean, all of us kids are pretty competitive for the most part.
Yeah, we're all pretty
as a family, almost all of the kids are
not all.
I feel like let's just say 80%.
Yeah, that's good.
Are super competitive.
Well, there's a lot of siblings, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you've been competing for that last like chicken tender since you were children.
I'm gonna dig into attention. Don't do it, Boats.
That's good.
That's cool.
No, I think Logan said it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're all competitive, and I think that draws us all either to DPS classes or DPS like classes to compare and be better than each other. And I think like internally, like I like powerlifting. I know Dalton does too. I'm a bigger dude in real life, and I think like the warrior class even is like more of a brute force of a person, and that draws to me simply because I feel like I could be a little bit of myself in that game that way and be competitive.
Dalton, is Logan a brute warrior in real life?
He's a brute warrior in real life, but there's a little teddy bear inside there where it's like
I think I don't think anyone walks in like I'm an orc, or I'm a warrior, But I think having the class that like it was the biggest class, it's like hell yes, that's what I'm gonna do.
I can agree with that though too. I don't know.
Now I know, Andrew, you don't. I mean, maybe I'd spent a number of years, but my experience of you was always a tank.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the one that absorbs damage, takes on the responsibility. Are you the oldest here? You are.
Of the brothers here? Yeah, I am.
Right. So is this like some older brother stuff going on with you tanking? Or like taking the heat?
Yeah, I like to help be in control of situations. So being a tank, you kind of have to do that. You kind of help coordinate the raid. You have to make sure that things are getting done properly, because if I don't do my job, they die, right? So ultimately, I have to strategize. I have to make sure that things are going correctly so that they can do their jobs and we can continue to clear content.
Yeah, we should be clear that there's typically only 1 or 2 tanks in a group of 40 people.
Right.
And there's maybe 7 or 8 healers, and then the rest are the damage. So you can hide in some of those other roles. You can't really hide as a tank. No. So you like that shine. You like that.
I do.
You can handle it. You can handle it.
I don't mind the spotlight when it comes to that kind of stuff, because it's intense, and I really love that about tanking, because like what you said, I can't hide. I have to do my job, and I have to show everyone that I can do my job so they feel confident in being able to perform.
Bro, do you like the spotlight and control in real life?
No, I mean, these two could probably answer that better. I don't know about loving the spotlight, but I like to create good environments, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think this.
I think to go off that a little bit, I think Andrew in real life, I think Andrew likes to uplift more people to make them the spotlight, in my opinion.
He's also super extroverted. Andrew is insanely extroverted.
Yeah, yeah, but like I don't know, he's just like he's not one to make it all about me. It's more like how can we make it about everybody? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so it is psychological.
I don't think anyone walks up to the character screen and like just clicks a character because they're like healing, like randomly. I think every person that walks into World of Warcraft or any other game of that like thinks about why they're going to like that class, and they're either going to play onto what they already are, or they're going to, I'm sure there's a lot of people that go into it that, maybe had a rough life, maybe are the opposite, not a very big person. They're like, I could walk into this game and be a very big DPSer, big person, big warrior.
Yeah. I think there's 2 takes. I think there's like, it's me. I want to do something that's natural to me. Or there's a part of me that I don't get to exercise in real life. It's like wish fulfillment. So I get to live that out in fantasy in the game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's crazy, because I never thought about it like that.
Just like Dungeons and Dragons. Like I feel like you already know, right? Like any game like this, like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's the fantasy part of it, right?
It is. I mean, I think Dungeons and Dragons is even more so, because it's open-ended. The character creation is pretty open-ended. Here you're kind of limited by the choices of the developers of WoW, but yeah, definitely. So do you think that you've developed skills in WoW that have been transferred to real life?
I think so. So doing all of that work when we were playing with you, like being the main tank is extremely stressful, and it was very eye-opening for me. Like I knew it was going to be stressful, but I didn't realize how stressful. And then also trying to help coordinate 39 other people on top of that was just something that I wasn't expecting. So
there's 2 things. There's tank, and then there's being an officer within the guild. And then there's a lot of coordinating outside of the game itself to get 40 people playing together.
Well, it's the prep work before the actual work too. So before raid, we'd get together, do assignments. I'd make sure the tanks knew what they were doing. We had other officers making sure the healers knew where to go. All sorts of coordinating beforehand, and then you have to put all that down and perform during the raid and make sure that it goes smoothly.
It's complex strategy.
Yeah, and that it taught me people skills for sure. It taught me some patience. That's something that I'm still learning. And it just taught me kind of stress management, I guess.
What's the most what makes you most impatient?
When people don't respect other people's time. Like it bugs me when we're trying to, so we have an allotted time to get this done, right? So I get really impatient with people when they don't respect that we have this time to do this and they just want to, like, you know, goof off or something like that. It just
drives you nuts.
Yeah, it does.
What about you guys?
That to me, I like to make it, you know, like I don't know whether it's like, you know, I respect other people's time or not. I feel like I do, but to make it fun, that's my goal in the raid. Like where it's like, you know, we could be competitive fun,
yeah,
but at the same time, I could poke fun at, you know, the person right below me on DPS of just, you know, that kind of fun. That's 100% what I try to strive for. So when people are like, you know, when we're getting frustrated at pixels, like I get frustrated at pixels. I'm 100%. I do. Not saying that, but it's like when we can't make it fun though, bro. That's a waste of time.
Yeah, then it just becomes work. It's like you're going to a job
for sure. And I'm here to have fun. I like you know, I'm here to relieve stress, whatever the case. Hang out with my brothers, sister, all of that. I'm here to have fun. And when people don't want to make it fun and they want to make it a job, that's frustrating.
Yeah. What about you, Logan? What are you most impatient with?
I think I'm probably on the same page with Dalton. I think for the most part, I don't get really frustrated a lot in the game. But when I do, it's usually when other people are like making it a worse experience by, you know, there's mechanics in the game, these things that you're supposed to do, right? And when somebody messes up, a lot of times people harp on them and, you know, just get rude and, you know, just make it a kind of a toxic, what we call a toxic environment. Yeah. And I think that probably makes me gross.
Toxicity, right? There's a balance, I think. We should say that there's a lot of different types of guilds and players out there. There's some people that come and literally just role play. They don't care about completing any tasks. They're all about entering into that world and pretending that they are their character. Mm-hmm. And they just have social events with other people who are on their avatars. That's one extreme. And then you have people who devote their lives to competing at the absolute highest level, you know, taking hours and hours and hours of their own time to prep to do 0.1% more damage per second so that they are higher than someone else. So they're in the upper echelon of players. Yeah. Right. And so I think but those people tend to be, as you said, toxic because they're so competitive. They're not very likable. Right? Like there are guilds, there are whole cultures that are not very likable. And the most friendly and likable cultures are the other end of the spectrum, typically. I mean, not always, but typically. And if you find a blend between the two, it's so rare. Where it's people who can compete and be competitive and also have a good time and be social and have real relationships and community. Really hard to find that balance.
Which I felt that's what we had when you were playing with us, with the Frost Wolves and all that. That was a really good blend of the two, I thought. Yeah. What was your experience?
When we play together? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think so. I think at the end of the day, if I have to choose between the two, it's people and relationships and having a good time.
Right.
And I think what's hurt me the most over the years is that because I've spent significant time with people and because I've poured my heart out and really demonstrated that I care about them beyond the pixels. And then there's this level of anonymity that could be there. Now it's more difficult to be anonymous. I mean, not more difficult. If you want to ghost people, you can, but like there's a community around like Discord which is like the gamers version of Slack, if people are familiar with that in the work world. And so there's a community that's built around this, basically this chat software. And so, I have felt hurt or burned by losing what I thought were real, authentic, close relationships over the years, which is why I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys showing up here, because it's not just about the game, you know, and even when you do play with people over and over and over again, you know, sooner or later, someone's like, yo, when are you coming through? Like, when do we get together in real life? Like, when can we chill? Like, there's something that leans towards that. Right. So for me, between the two, like, I will go with that. I wouldn't say always in my gaming history I've been there. I think there's been times where I've been a little bit more toxic and self-centered and trampled over people's feelings. And I really regret that, because I do also consider myself a competitive player, not in terms like, yeah, I mean, personality wise, I could get competitive when I played, but I mean, I'm a skilled player, you know, and skilled players, part of being skilled too is putting in the time and putting in the effort and being competitive. So I'd say it's like this for me, like a little bit more fun, but still want to be competitive. And I do think that we achieved that for a time. I mean, I basically stopped playing because I had other demands on my life and time with kids and work and stuff. But I still love everybody that I played with and wish there was an opportunity to connect with them. I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing this show is so I can hang out with my friends. I'll be honest with you.
It's a good excuse.
I just really want to hang out because it's hard. Life gets so busy.
Yep. Right. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think that's also a reason, like, if somebody has enough time when, life's busy, like for me, like I didn't play games. These guys knew like forever, like it was not going to happen. But one of the reasons that I started playing was because I didn't have to dress up, go somewhere, all this stuff. I could just hop onto the game with my friends, at night, and my brothers and my sisters, and have a little fun,
No pants on. You're just playing with no pants.
I telling you, right? Like Bo, we know Bo's is on in his bed playing, the game with all of us, having a good time.
Bathrobe style.
It's ease of access. It's really nice.
So gaming as a family is very cool. Yes. I mean, there's what an awesome opportunity for you guys to still connect with one another as you're getting older, and just hang out. Like there must be extra motivation, like hanging out. And you are competitive. Each of you are very everyone in your family is competitive. I know your sister as well. She's also competitive. So I imagine do you guys push each other?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the first time you guys remember before World of Warcraft where you guys were competitive or
Monopoly?
Monopoly.
Oh, dude,
already got you. Monopoly.
100%.
Well, who's the best at Monopoly here?
Yes. I think we figured out
two
ways to win. One was like, you beat the game. Two, you didn't get the most mad. You know what I mean? Like you were able to keep a cool head.
Or you burned the house down. That one.
I lost.
We don't play Monopoly. We're like, it's disallowed. Nobody's allowed to play Monopoly. When anybody gets a new significant other, the first thing we tell them is we don't play Monopoly. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about it.
Who here has table flipped? Who's flipped?
I don't say it's never got to the point of table flip. More verbal. I would say verbal. Yeah. That's
verbal what? Like swearing at each other?
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah.
Accusations. You're corrupt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When you started trading with somebody that you weren't supposed to be trading with.
Alliances formed.
Teaming up a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's when everybody started getting mad, is because you'd be the loser and you team up with another loser and take over the winner. And yeah.
Speaking of alliances, this just came to my mind. The other thing we should say about World of Warcraft is that there are two factions.
Yep.
There is the Alliance and the Horde. And I was roped into playing Horde with you guys, which we all know is the worst of the two factions. I was encouraged. I mean, I was roped in. I didn't have a choice. Another friend, a mutual friend of ours, invited me to play World of Warcraft, and he said the decision has already been made. We're going Horde. They're the bad guys. They're a bunch of Muppets that live in a dust bowl. We all know. Why don't you guys play
They're the misunderstood,
Alliance?
Coach. All right, they're the misunderstood. All right?
They're the misunderstood.
And the reason we played Horde is because we have a bunch of min-maxers here, and Horde was the best class for min-maxing at the time. So I think that's why everybody was picking Horde.
Please explain min-maxing to the fans. What does that mean?
Ooh, so that's like the toxic stuff. So right, like we were talking about before, like relative to other players, there's a bunch of software in the background that tells you how you're doing in your damage per second, which I should say DPS is damage per second, relative to other players. And so min-maxing is a form of seeing how well you can do, well to other players. And so, like Bo was saying, you could spend, hours on hours grinding, weeks on weeks on weeks to gain some kind of buff or something in order to be just slightly better than everybody else. And so you could pick races, alliances, whatever, to just be slightly better than everybody else and do a little bit more damage.
And so the decision was based on not any system of morality or ethics or any kind of integrity or virtue. That went out the window. It's am I better than these people? That's the
do you get Wind Fury? And then that was it. Like that was the decision. Do you get this buff that's gonna make you better?
Plus, we've been playing Alliance on the private server before this, so that was part of the decision as well. Is we've been playing Alliance and we wanted to switch. We wanted to change.
Mix it up.
I'd never played Horde before that.
Okay. Do you guys ever seen The Dark Knight?
Yes.
Batman? It's been a while.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We got some fans. Here. Do you remember the scene where the Joker takes the pool cue and he snaps it, and he takes a broken pool cue and throws it between these two henchmen, and he says, "There's a new job opening." He essentially says, "Winner take all."
Yep.
Right. They basically have to kill each other with a split pool cue.
Yep.
That's what I want to do right now. Who is the best gamer among you?
That's a hard question, Bo.
That's between Logan and Dalton for sure.
It depends on the game.
Sounds like Dalton has an answer.
No. Andrew's just never. So he played the tank role, where it's like there's no DPS competitive there, and then when we decided to go to this next expansion, he decided to play a DPS that would fill a void, but they're not the top DPS. So it's like it'd be super fun to be able to like all three of us warriors, same class, same everything, and just have at it. I think we never got an opportunity to do that.
Boach, who do you think is?
I think I'm better than all of you.
No, you have to pick us three though. Well, I'll chuck it back at you. Boach, you gotta pick. You played with us all.
Boach quit for 2 years. Put that out there, dude.
I'll just shake the rust off and show you. But I'm a healer. By nature, I'm a healer. I tried some DPS, but at the end of the day, whenever I go back and play these games, I'm a healer. Makes sense, right? That's what I do for a living.
What about Paladin, though? I thought you were a DPS Paladin kind of person.
I was. I mean, I like to have a little of both. I like to have. I mean, this is one of my big complaints about that game, the original classic game, is you can really. There's only enough time to have one character. But whenever I've played an MMO historically, I like to have one damage and one healing. But if I had to choose, probably it would be a healer. It would be a healer.
Actually, Coach, to kind of go back, I guess, with the toxicity thing of like psychology or what with people. So it's like, when people are like super min max to the to the highest tier, does that say something about them in real life?
Yeah. No, I think everything we do says something about who we are. Everything we do. I mean, the choice of food that we have for dinner can be psychoanalyzed. I think the question becomes why. I mean, if you want to get real deep here, the question of competitiveness in a video game becomes, why are you competitive? What does it mean to you if you are not the best? What do you think that says about who you are? How do you think people will perceive you? Are you comfortable with that? What keeps you striving to be at the top? I think, not to say there's anything wrong with being competitive, but a true healthy competitive spirit, really, really healthy, is for me to want to do my absolute best and wanting someone that I'm competing against for them also to do their absolute best.
Yep.
And at the end, there happens to be a score. But it's through a spirit of goodwill that I want them to do their best. And if I'm not the best, I'm okay with that. I think when people's identity gets wrapped up in their performance, that's why people get angry and toxic, because they think that who they are is reflective of their numbers on a screen. But that's not who you are. Like, you're loved independent of how well you perform against, Naxxramas boss or something like that, Right. And I think competitiveness is a tricky thing. And I think it's tough to like explain why someone's competitive in the abstract, but I think each person has to ask themselves, why are you competitive?
That's the real
question. That's the way to look at it. Dang. Wow.
Any thoughts? Not any thoughts now that I posed it that way?
It makes total sense to me. Like for me,
you need help.
The reason that I said Dalton and Logan would be, I feel that they're a little more competitive than me in a good way. When I was tanking, I guess I took the game the most serious, and that was mainly because I wanted to perform for other people as well as myself, if that makes sense. When I switched to DPS, I didn't take it as serious. Like it was if I mess up, it's on me, right? So
yeah.
Me not getting a 99 parse on a fight, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like I want to perform, but if I don't get it, some of this game is kind of rigged anyway, like depending on your class and stuff like that. So it's all dependent on if you're okay with it or not. But these two have always performed very, very well in their class.
Yeah. I think there's probably something too about like the male experience growing up where you get social capital, you get accepted in your friend group if you are successful, if you're competitive, whether it's in sports or academics or whatever it is. And so I think as kids, we learn the lie that I'm accepted if I do well. When the reality is, if you think about it, if you flip it, there's lots of people that that don't do well, and it has no bearing on whether or not you love them. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like kids is the best example. Like I have 2 kids, and they're terrible at being a human being. Like they're not good at it. But
still
like
drunk humans.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. But who cares? Like I don't care. I love them. And you can think like it's a lie to think that who we are or whether or not we're loved by people is based on our performance and what we do. And it's like that message. It's because that experience, that message gets communicated to us in our experience growing up in subtle ways, sometimes by our parents and even people with the best intentions. Like, you could have a parent that's like, great job getting an A+. And then the next time you come in, it's like, how come you got a B+?
Right.
And it seems subtle, but that child who's not like cognitively developed yet is just like basically communicating via emotion and tone. And they might learn like, I'm not loved if I don't get the A+. Not that the parent's thinking that, but there's a lot of ways that these sort of messages get communicated, and then they can be reinforced by other experiences. They get more attention from a teacher or a coach or whatever, or with their friend group, whatever. Competitiveness can develop in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that's something we actually need to break down, because we are not what we do. We are actually good in and of ourselves, independent of our performance. Because here's the other thing, guys, I'm on the other side of 40 now. I'm getting dumber, balder, and fatter every day, and less good looking every day. So if my self-worth is based on those qualities, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. It's getting worse. So I have to believe that I'm more than those things,
But then do you, to kind of go off that a little bit, do you have to compete in other ways though to be like, maybe it is, and I'm just, naive and I don't understand, but I feel like, it's, there's a reason there's that as kids, when you're growing up with your friend group or whatever, there's that competitive, like it's real.
Yep.
And we could say it's a lie, or however we want to describe that, but it's like, it's a real thing to where we are dealing with it, and it comes from somewhere, whether it's like, DNA. Testosterone's a big part of it. Testosterone makes you competitive. For sure. And so then,
Yeah.
like, as you're growing up, getting older and stuff like that, you're competing physically, whatever the case. And then when you get older to where like physically you can't compete, now you're trying to compete, whether it's intelligently,
But even
whatever.
well, yes, it's a great question. And I will say this, but even intelligence is declining. Like reaction speed is declining. Like, there's a difference between like crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence. So fluid intelligence declines. Like the height of your ability to like engage in abstract reasoning is 25 years old. I hate to break it to you. It's declining after age 25. Crystallized intelligence, which is accumulation of knowledge, that goes on for the rest of your life. And that does give you like a wider breadth of knowledge. But even still, I mean, you could get Alzheimer's, your memory goes like, my memory is not what it used to be. So that does decline as well. But it's a good point. Is there any area where I think that I want to continue to grow in as a man, that I can still grow in?
Correct.
Yes. And that is wisdom. That's one area that you can always grow more in. And it gives you a sort of sense of competency, and wisdom is that ability to discern truth from experience, typically through experiences of suffering. I mean, you don't really gain wisdom without suffering. I've never met anyone that's wise that didn't suffer to get their wisdom. Suffering doesn't always lead to wisdom. Sometimes suffering leads to despair, but you don't get the wisdom without the suffering. But that is something that I try to strive towards and can feel good about myself as a man as my life progresses.
I see. Okay.
That makes sense.
Do you also think about, just out of curiosity, because I think a lot of like older guys, that it just changes into money, right? Like instead of your physical body, right, it's how much money you're making, how many cars, right? Like what's your income per year, right? I mean, replaces that, right?
Yeah. Thankfully for me, that's not a thing. I think I grew up in a house with like no money. We struggled and we were really happy. And for me, I just know that it doesn't make you happy. I mean, I do well now. I'm not in a place where I was when I was a child. And I think there could be a temptation to think if you didn't have money and you're pained or traumatized by not having money, which is common, you think, oh, if I get that money, then all that hurt from when I was younger will go away. But it actually doesn't. It doesn't. Right. Money really does not make you happy. But to your point, Logan, yes, I think that does get transferred onto money. Women, like competing against other men for women, conquering women, being like a serial kind of
womanizer.
Well, womanizer. There, that's the word. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The content can switch, and with that testosterone, that competitiveness. But the truth is, like deep down, if you peel it all back, like everybody wants to like open this up and be like, "Yo, I'm a mess. Like, you still love me?" And hear that answer. Yes, back, right? We all want to hear yes back to that question deep down, but it's hard to unscrew this too, and say like, this is who I am, and this is the mess that I am, and are you going to be there for me? But it's what we want. It's unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need. Yeah.
And you guys have that. I mean, as brothers, you have an advantage because of the blood, right?
Right.
Like thick and thin.
For sure.
I feel like we've always had it, but growing up in a big household, you fought a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on, kids fighting for love, kids fighting for different stuff, But as you get older, the cool thing about growing up is you really hone in on those relationships.
Yeah.
And they just start to blossom and grow even more. It's awesome. Yeah,
especially as a lot of friendships fall away.
Right.
You gain new friends. I mean, whether it's in high school, you get a little bit older, and not to say all friendships do. There's some, but to be a long-term friend, you have to be intentional about it. You have to put in effort, and it hurts a little bit, just like a romantic relationship. You have to put in work. Yep. But it's true of blood too. But there's something it's easier. It is
more natural.
Yeah. You have common ground, whether you're seeing your parents, whether you're seeing each other over holidays, right? You can laugh about the same trauma. You can understand each other at a lower level, right? Like there's a lot of that there. With a friend over time, you don't have that same kind of common ground.
It's so funny as you get older too. There's less and less people that remember that time. Like I have my sister and my brother that remember what it's like to be in that house when we were kids with those parents. Like friends don't get it. You meet someone new, they have no idea, and that's been happening since you were young. And so it kind of like it helps you ground yourself. It's like, was that real? Because your memory starts to change. Right. But if there was someone else that was there, it was like, oh, that was real. That was a real experience, and I can talk to someone about it who gets that.
I'm laughing right now because each one of our significant others are traumatized by us, because every single all three, they already know what I'm going to talk about. Well, all three of us, every time we're around our family, I mean our friends or significant others, whatever, we talk about this huge yard that we had and how much we had to weed that yard and how much it's screwed our social lives and our lives. And everyone of our significant others hate hearing about it because that's all we talk about, how much we hate. But every time we talk about it with each other, we're always like, yes, it sucked. That was true. That was,
They just laugh about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Must have been a big yard.
It was
huge.
Stupid. Yeah. It would basically, we would spend all at our entire summer trying to get over weeding that yard. Just 3 months of our summer, 110 degrees St. George heat, trying to weed that thing and get it done so that we could go back to having fun with friends. And of course, we were all procrastinators and kids. And so there's a bunch of stuff on top of that.
No, you just said St. George. So, but Utah is a different state. It's just different.
Mormonism?
Well, we don't have to talk about Mormonism. I mean, maybe that's the reason, because the culture, there's such a high population of Mormons, and there's a different culture that comes with being Mormon. But I think there's something really unique about the state of Utah. Why do you think it's so different? Does it feel different to you guys? Or is it just an outsider observing, like,
in a good way, it feels different. I think community and family is huge here. And so it kind of shows with strangers and different things like that. There's just a sense of community.
I think we have the youngest population too, right? Due to the amount of kids we have, right? So I think you literally have a different population. Yeah, I think we literally have a different population than the rest of the states. I can Google it, but I'm pretty sure we have the youngest state.
Because of the big families.
So many kids. Yeah, exactly. You have so many kids, right? And so many to replace you constantly, and how the growth there, that you constantly have such a young population that's being born. You take the average of that, you're the youngest state because of how many kids you're having.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the kids are running the show.
I mean, I just think that you have a state where you have so much of the same religion, right? That has the same values, right? That is very it's a Christian religion that is very around family, and you have a ton of kids that are all being born all the time. So I think you kind of have to have a different culture versus other states that may not have as much of the same values in every single household.
It's true. Yeah. Up in Connecticut, it's like 2 kids and that's it.
Right.
Like, people are done. They want their second kid, so there's at least not an only child. They have a sibling, but that's very, very common up here.
How does Utah look like to you from an outsider perspective, though? You know what I mean? Because really here, we have a different view, I would think. Kind of.
I don't even know that I can put my finger on it. I'm not even sure what it is, but there's a certain Utah Ness. Because you guys aren't the only people I know from Utah. We have some other friends that we play with.
Correct.
And there's something about those people too there's something that you guys all share.
Is it a positive or negative? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I love you guys. I love you guys. But it is set apart. There's something that's set apart. And I'm trying to put my finger on what it is. And maybe it's the influence of Mormon culture, which, whether or not you're Mormon, it's still in the air. It still permeates and influences people's personality, their values. I'm Catholic. I mean, we don't have to go into religion, at least right now. I mean, we can. Being Catholic, I find a lot of commonalities in the values of a Mormon faith, like the family, the focus, the virtue building, the sacrificing for other people, just generally being a good person. It's instilled at an early age,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what it is. I wonder if it's the natural beauty I mean, it's a gorgeous state, obviously.
That's what I think it is. Like, I mean, we got the big old crater, the mountain ranges coming through here. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
yeah.
Outside of that big old crake, whatever you want to call it, big old mountains, it's flat. So I don't know. It's
you're isolated.
You could you could put it that way. I don't like it's
insulated. I mean, not isolated, but insulated. Like you're all kind of like the culture is contained. Correct. Yeah, and even within the state, there are pockets of that too, right? Not just the state versus other states, but within the state, there's pockets of sort of civilization and then a lot of like natural land between.
Correct.
Yeah. And the state is also because we have our outdoor stuff, right? Like I think you have kind of the rocky region of states, right? And I think there's all similarity there because I think around the rocky region you have like the top 4 fittest states too, just healthy, literally, like because we're outdoor all the time, so
skiing,
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So like here in Utah, right, you've got, both Mormonism throughout the entire state. You've got, all the natural beauty with hiking and stuff like that. So you've got one of the fittest states, right? And then you've also got, a lot of beauty, that you would consider outdoor. So a lot of people come here for, Zion or whatever it is, some of the most, the most beautiful things in the country or in the world, and the best snow or the best snow in the world. And so I think you get a lot of that. It becomes pretty special, I guess, to a lot of us.
Yeah, I've only been to Utah one time, and I just flew in. It must have been Salt Lake, right? That's where people fly through? Yeah. And I had a layover, and just looking out the windows of the airport, I was just in a glorious winter wonderland of mountain snow. It was just beautiful, just looking out the window, and I was like, wow. It was kind of intimidating in a way. I felt like I was going through the misty mountains of Lord of the Rings or something.
Well, and the crazy thing about Utah is, so that's where Logan lives. If you drive 4 hours south to where me and Dalton live, there's probably no snow. We hardly ever get snow here.
But
it's
drive
more like a
minutes.
Vegas climate.
Like high desert?
Yeah. Like hot. It's cold in the winter, obviously, but it's very rare that we get snow. Monsoons like crazy in the summertime, but
so you said Vegas hot. I mean, you get like 120 degrees, that kind of stuff?
We're probably, I'd say, 5 to 7 degrees cooler than Vegas.
But still, that's pretty hot.
Yeah.
Dry? Very dry?
Very dry. If there was humidity, people would be dropping like flies.
A lot of nosebleeds.
You gotta stay hydrated, bro. Stay hydrated, you'll be all right.
I got to get out there. What else do you guys do together besides gaming? I mean, we have I know Dalton and Logan, you guys power lift, but you don't really, I mean, even that to me, I guess that going back to this Utah question, like I've never met anyone else that power lifts before. Like that's the thing that when I'm trying to put my finger in what it is about Utah, it's that people do unique things that I haven't been exposed to before. Not just powerlifting, but anything. Like people have unique hobbies and things that seem so different than me.
Yeah, you guys can't hike on flat land, So got him.
I live in actually a hilly place. I'm not in the Midwest. The Midwest is very flat. The Northeast is basically like carved out of a forest, and there's a lot of hills, but no mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Appalachia, but not quite.
I laugh a little bit because I think I hate to do this, and I'll probably do it a couple more times, but like I think again it comes back to the family thing where again you just you have a big family, you don't have the funds to constantly take your family to Disneyland. I mean, some of them do. There's a Disneyland culture here everywhere, right? But so what are you going to go do? You're going to go hiking. You're going to go outdoor, right? You're going to go do all the stuff that's a lot cheaper for your, like us as kids. We went to Fish Lake. We did a lot of fishing and stuff like that. And so I think I'd go back to, you have a large family, you don't have a ton of money, you're going to go do hobbies and activities. And so as kids, you kind of adopt those or learn those, and you're like, okay, that's what you do, right?
You guys do that kind of stuff together? Do outdoor stuff together?
Yes. Not as much as we used to, but yeah.
Good. Yeah.
What does that look like?
Nowadays.
What was it?
What does that look like? I mean, what do you guys do?
Dalton,
you go camping?
Me and Dalton went fishing, 2 months ago? Did you say?
Yeah, about.
Baker.
Yeah.
We try every couple of years to get a cabin together and bring the family and do a cabin trip. But most of the time when we all get together, it's concerts or going to a show, or it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or holidays, or just saying hi. Like we don't necessarily have to be doing anything crazy just to hang out. Like we just.
You guys listen to the same kind of music?
Oh yeah,
Very much so.
Yeah,
we share music with each other.
So like, if you were to describe what kind of music that is, you're looking at like soft, like classics, or what do you guys listen
people
to?
yelling at you.
People
And country music and metal, really.
Yeah.
Country music, metalcore, stuff like that.
Well, that they've integrated those two genres nowadays, don't they? Do like
They're trying
country
to.
metal?
They're getting there. They're getting there a little bit.
I like to keep them separate though.
Well, why do you like metal? Why do you like people yelling at each other?
Pumps you up, man.
Oh man, I go back. I'm a very competitive person, and like powerlifting, even my day job when I'm trying to I code for a living, like just trying to code. Like I'm always constantly trying to get motivated or energy to go do stuff, to go and whatever. And it's really nice having some good metal in the background, some good grooves to kind of get you motivated or going for whatever you're doing.
Dalton?
And I don't know. It's just something about just someone. I don't know. It's just the loud, boom, 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 boom. It's just like you can't think of anything else except for what's going on inside the headphones. I don't know. But when it's
it makes you more mindful. It brings you to the present moment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But when it's like something softer and stuff, like it's not as easy to keep you in the moment, whereas like something soft and quote unquote sad, it's like you're thinking of all the stuff that was soft and sad in your head of your whole lifespan, whereas you're frustrated and listen to something grabbing your attention right now. I think that's what the big draw to it.
Okay.
For me, I think it's just so intense that it just pulls you in and draws you, and the energy is pretty insane.
Yeah.
It could be because I haven't, because I think there's like like I use the word anger management, where it's like I think the whole family has this where we can get very frustrated very fast, and so like maybe that music triggers that right there and then, so that we don't have to use that later. I have no idea.
It's a way to get the anger out.
Yeah,
Yeah, music is funny because it's art in general has this way of getting past your conscious mind and into your unconscious and pulling things out. So that's why we have different, for music especially, we have moods that correspond to the music that we're listening to. Mm-hmm. And the music is it's a counterpoint to what we're experiencing emotionally. If you guys are frustrated a lot and you have some anger, and that's it, like the music is like, it's almost like I feel understood. It's like that. There's something outside of me that makes me feel understood. Yeah. Cause I feel angry. Mm-hmm. And I know that, anger is a funny thing. There's actually nothing wrong with anger. People think that there's something wrong with anger. It's
question.
Wait, sure.
Is anger human made?
Human made. What do you mean by that?
So it's not natural. So, how do I, so it was created by humans. Anger was created by humans, was it? Or because I feel like we've invented that emotion. You know what I mean?
It's natural, right?
We're taught it.
What do you think, Logan? You have some thoughts?
I think it's natural. Definitely, it's a chemical reaction that's happening in your body that causes you to be angry, and I think every human experiences that.
Andrew, what do you think? Is it natural or created?
Every emotion always goes back to primal. I think there's always some reason why we have these emotions that we have. Anger could have been if you missed your kill, now you got angry, and so you get this adrenaline, and now you want to go chase more and kill another target. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so it is. I don't think it's man-made. I don't think it's created, to answer your question. I think all emotions are a response to what happens in the environment outside of us. So anger is a response typically to injustice. Sadness is a response to loss. Joy is a response to communion and connection with other people. So every single emotion is neutral. anger, I think, for people is frightening because it can become very problematic. But just like there is a version of healthy expression of emotion or anger, but when it becomes wrath and I'm hurting people with it, then that's a major issue. But you can hurt someone with any emotion. You could hurt someone with desire, right? Like they're actually all morally neutral until they get to that point where it's an extreme. Anger in particular, you use anger more than you might think. You use anger when you say, I want onions on my cheeseburger, because anger allows you to be assertive. It allows you to say what I want. It's where I end and someone else begins. So like the lowest level of anger is required for asserting yourself. The highest level of anger is wrath and hurting people, right? But all along the way, expressing how you feel, setting boundaries with other people, expressing your needs and wants, like it actually requires a little bit from the anger spectrum, believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
So it's just a good mix of balancing it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's a way. I don't think a lot of people know how to express it skillfully. I think there's a danger when I'm upset, when I go like this. How do you feel when I go like this? I don't even say anything right now.
Feels like you're targeting me.
Right? Makes you defensive, right? So when you're angry, there's this temptation to blame. That's the danger. But if you could take that finger and go like this, you never call. It would mean a lot to me if you call, or it hurt me that you didn't call, or I want to spend time with you, whatever it is. I mean, there's other
right.
There's other principles that I just used, but giving that example, I used other principles as well, like an underlying positive or whatever. But in general, just thinking about where the finger is pointed, if you can express your anger and always talk about it in terms of what your experience is like, that often disarms people. But you're still getting your anger out, and you can say it with a solid, strong, angry tone. But if the words are expressing what an experience is like for you, it's skillful. It's just a lot of people don't know how to do that. They just blame other people and it becomes combative.
Right.
Not to go too deep, but especially as men, the vulnerability part is the hard part, right? I think for men, it's really easy to point fingers and get mad and show that other side. The harder part is this part, because that requires vulnerability and show that inside emotion of what am I truly desiring here, and why am I really mad, right? It's that under part there.
For sure. And I don't think men even like that word. I mean, trust me, I know they don't. This is what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
That word vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
feelings, vulnerable. Like nobody wants to be vulnerable. But you know what sounds better than that, which equates to the same thing? Authentic. Authenticity. Doesn't that sound more attractive than vulnerable? I want to be authentic. I don't really want to be vulnerable because now I'm exposed, and it's almost like like I don't want to be a boy. I don't want to be like a child that's vulnerable. Like I want to feel like I can handle myself. But it actually takes a tremendous amount of courage to share what you have going on. It's actually pretty masculine and manly to be authentic if you frame it that way. Like, this is where I'm at.
Absolutely agree, because I think as soon as you allow you authenticity, vulnerability, whatever, that to a lot of men, right? And truthfully, it to some degree is exposing weakness to allow somebody to come at you or to, whatever, because, I think a lot of us men as kids or whatever it is, right? We kind of we bring on these shells so that we're not weaker because people close to us hurt us or whatever, right? And I'm not a therapist, my 2 cents, right? But the vulnerability part is the hard part there, because we learn to kind of stop doing that, as young kids so that we don't get hurt. But the truth is as we get older and have these relationships, the more we do this, the more we open up and expose ourselves and be authentic, vulnerable, whatever, that allows us to have those good, healthy relationships.
If we can do it, it's still frightening.
Right.
It's hard as hell.
Yeah. Even with the people
part of it is like where you come from as well, though, because like where we come from, as a man growing up, even as a boy, you're supposed to keep your composure. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Just kind of keep it inside and just kind of stuff it down and just continue to do the work, whatever it is, right? Yep. So as you get older, you continue to practice that, and you just keep stuffing until eventually one day you just pop, and you don't know how to control all those emotions and the anger. So trying to learn it as an adult is extremely hard, and trying to, because you've never had the conversations, and so having them with your spouse or your brothers or your sisters, whatever it is, trying to learn how to properly say what's going on is extremely important, because that's how it translates.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's anger, it's always justifiable. What people don't like, when I work with couples, for example, one of the biggest hurdles early on is helping them realize that there are actually two equal valid perspectives here, instead of one person is right and one person is wrong. And there's some objectively measurable evidence that can point to one person being right and one person being wrong. That's just not true. It's just two people looking at a situation differently. So if you're angry about something, if you have a perceived injustice, that's valid. Like most of the time, all we want to hear is, I can understand what you're going through, and I can see how you're experiencing that. So, I mean, if you guys are all kind of annoyed and frustrated, and and this kind of music, like, hits you deep and it hits just right, like, you probably have good reasons to be pissed off.
But
and I don't.
Crazy,
are you trying?
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, go ahead.
I think a lot of us have very familiar music love. So we grew up on like Josh Groban, Celine Dion, like Meatloaf, like just a huge variety of artists. And as we got older is when we started getting introduced to like the hardcore genre. But when I clean the house, man, I'm listening to Celine Dion all the time. But if I'm going out and I'm doing something that like I need to focus and like get stuff done, it's going to be the hardcore stuff.
Yeah, well, we have different parts of ourselves, right? I don't think anybody exclusively likes one type of music. Just like we have different, and these different parts of ourselves have different mood states. Mm-hmm. So it depends on whatever mood you're in. I mean, I get it. But you ever in a certain mood, and then you put on music, and it might be a song that you really like, but in that moment you're like, no,
just not feeling it.
That's exactly, you're not feeling it. Like you said that kind of casually, like, 'cause that's generally the way you talk, but like, that's the truest statement. You're not feeling it. It doesn't resonate with how you're feeling.
Which is always important.
Yeah. It's everything. So you guys know what I do for a living. I'm a psychologist.
You attack people.
You attack people, dude.
Only those I love. Only those I love. I only bust chops for the people that I love. So I work I'm trained as a psychologist. I work as a mentor now, which is slightly left of being a psychologist, but I'm obviously very interested in psychology. And I've done a lot of work to integrate spirituality with psychology. And by spirituality, it's a pretty broad term. It doesn't have to mean religion. In fact, it doesn't exactly mean religion. A lot of times nowadays you hear people say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. People are referring to like the organization or body of religious practice, versus spirituality is like your relationship with the transcendent, right? From a monotheistic perspective, you'd say monotheistic meaning you believe in one God. It's my relationship with God, right? It's with the personhood of God. But spirituality can mean many things. And I'm Catholic, and for me, it means something very specific to integrate psychology and a Catholic worldview, Catholic philosophy, Catholic spirituality, Catholic anthropology, Catholic religion, all of it. It's and my training in psychology. Anyway, all that to say, do you guys see a relationship between those two, between psychology and religion? Or let's just go even more simpler to start. When you think of psychology, what do you think of?
Mental. In your head.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's trying to master the human brain and your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd probably just switch master to understand there. I think it's psychology. I think a lot about just trying to understand the human state and human emotions. And
Mm-hmm. let's tease that out a little bit. Understand versus master. What's the difference? In relation to emotions, should we understand our emotions or should we master them?
So I have a therapist. I have done a lot of therapy, and so this doesn't make me a master. This is just my perspective on therapy and going to therapy for years and a lot of it. I think I've learned for myself that I cannot control how I feel about something happening. I mean, over time, that feeling can change. Over time, that feeling can be different depending on how you understand it and how deep you understand it. But I absolutely cannot master or control my emotions in anything. What I can change is how I understand my emotion and how I deal with that emotion and what I do with that emotion when I have those emotions, right? So that's why I say understand, because if I understand it, then I can act on that. I can, dig deeper into it. I can go further into it. There's a lot of things I can do with it, but I can't stop that initial burst of emotion that happens, when positive or negative, as I go through life.
Cool. Andrew, you said master. What did you mean by that?
So I don't think you could ever master your emotions, but what I kind of meant by it is trying to continually chase it. And because as we grow older, we evolve and things change and your life changes, and so trying to continually chase to master it. But I think understanding is a better way of what I was trying to say, because like mastering your emotions is never going to happen, right? So being able to understand how you feel in the moment and being able to interpret it is important.
I'm gonna reflect on that. I feel like you understand to master, and I think going off what those two answers, it's like I think you can master it to your level.
To your level. What do you mean by that?
Current knowledge.
I mean, everyone's different. Someone can handle a situation better than others, but to you right there, you master it, you understand it to the maximum capacity that you can, which I mean is a never-ending understanding, as you go through life. But
cool.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
All right, Spencer.
I think it's actually a blend of the. I think very impressive. I think it's actually a combination of both. Where, like a good analogy to think about this would be like a rider and a horse, and your emotions are the horse, and your will and your intellect are the rider. You need to respect the horse. You need to understand the horse. You cannot beat the horse. You cannot. I mean, a good rider doesn't spur a horse and dig metal into their flesh, right? They know how to work with the horse. They respect the beast. But they don't let the beast take the rider wherever they want to. The beast wants to go, wherever the horse wants to go. If the horse wants to jump off a cliff, you better learn how to control that horse, right? So I think it's just helpful to think about it of like, you do control your emotions, and I think it was kind of implicit in what you said, Logan, which is that I can still make decisions, right? I can still make decisions. It is true that you can't, like, your response to what is happening outside of you in the environment is just your reaction. And like I was labeling before, it is normal functioning to have predictable reactions to things, like anger. You should be angry at an injustice, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's just it's just your emotions are telling you about what's happening outside of you, and they do move you to act. The horse gets you to where you want to go, but you can't let it run wild. You just can't. You have to modulate it. You have to relate to it. You have to respect it. You have to listen to it. You got to feed it carrots, right? You got to brush it. Yeah, comb the mane, all gentle, give it some oats.
Do.
But you also, you don't let it ride you. You ride the horse at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think it is a both and.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Because horses know when a rider gets on it if they're going to control the rider or vice versa. Like horses are
Right.
very, yeah. So I think that's actually a really good analogy.
They can feel
And
the comfort
they
level.
will take you wherever they want if you're not a good rider. So yeah, I like that a lot.
Well, I take all the credit for that analogy and give none to Aristotle. I came up with that.
That's good.
All right, so let's move over to faith a little bit and spirituality and religion and what, like, any one of those kinds of broad areas of something beyond the material world. Do you think those things? How do you think? And this might be a unique question or a unique response from each of you. Do you think those things are related, psychology and spirituality, or are they not?
I think they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to be related.
Yeah, but I think that nowadays religion, they're intertwined with each other. Because religion is supposed to be spiritual and psychology is, so you can use psychology with yourself and with other people, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So using psychology and religion, you can use it to your own advantage, and it starts to become less and less about religion, I feel like. But I think they're supposed to be separate.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw a curveball at everybody real quick, but religion, I intertwine religion or spirituality with mental psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So like not a hot take clearly, but I am my own God and I am my own world. And however I react and what I create in my world and my whatever is how happy I'm going to be. So like I don't necessarily believe that there's going to be, an afterlife or whatever the case. But like if there is, which is cool, no hating or whatever the case, it's like I'm in control and I'm not going to rely on someone else or whatever the thing. I'm going to be making the decisions that I want to do. That's going to make me happy, mad, sad, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think they're intertwined because I am my own God, if that makes sense.
Okay. Logan?
I think.
Are you stressed?
No, I'm not stressed. No. I just think it just gets complex really fast. But like, I think.
Yeah.
No, I'm not stressed at all. No, I just think that like I think they have to be intertwined in my opinion. Like I think it's a very independent answer on everybody, but I think if you're like a very very religious, very faithful person, my 2 cents is that like your psychology is very dependent on that. Like I think especially when I think about Christianity or something like that, right? Like I think about that relationship with Jesus, God, whatever it is. I think that becomes very important in your psychology and in your well-being, and you know what I mean. I think that's taught in the religion usually. So I think for me, like not for me personally, I guess from my opinion on this is that every person independently, it does matter. And if you're not religious, right? If you're agnostic, if you're atheist or whatever, right? Like it still is important because that's not a part of the equation, right? Like that's you only believe in yourself or whatever it is. You don't believe in these other things.
Or it explains religion. Like an atheistic view would say that psychology explains religion. That religion is nothing more than psychology, right?
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Like I mean, some atheists, yeah. I think there's this spectrum, right? Like I'm agnostic, right? Like so, like and I don't believe in higher billing or anything like that, right? So you consider that atheism, but like I think that there's a spectrum, right, where there's certain atheists that believe that like there's absolutely not a God, there's absolutely nothing out there, and so it's all explained by us trying to create some kind of mental image of God and all of those things to explain the world. I think I'm probably on a spectrum over here where I'm agnostic because I just don't believe anything, but not necessarily because I think that we're all just making up things in the sky or whatever, but it's just because I don't.
So, but your agnosticism is not the typical agnosticism, which is like, I just don't know. It could be true. You think it's not true.
I mean, part of that is that I just don't know. And I don't have an internal belief system that believes that there is something more. Yeah. So part of it is that, like, I don't know. And I think like my internal answer is that, like, if one day I walked out and I was like, yeah, they're like, I believe in Jesus or I believe in a God or something like that, then that would change, right? But I mean that's not how it is. And so for me, I don't believe anything, and therefore I'd say agnostic.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I wish in some ways this is the challenge of having 4 people in a conversation. Like each one of you, I want to ask like follow-up questions to each one of you. Yeah, I think from my standpoint, from a Catholic, well, not all Catholics are. Hold on, let me see. Let me start over.
Are you on the spectrum of a Catholic?
He's Catholic.
I'm Catholic. Yeah. No, for me, I think that like you can think of your spirituality as your relationship with God and your psychology as your relationship with everything else, but they're so deeply interwoven in the sense that how I relate to others is reflective of my relationship with God, and how I relate to God is going to influence how I relate to other people, and not just other people, but relate to cooking dinner tonight. Anything psychological, like anything that has any experience has a psychological dimension to it. And so I also think that if you believe, and I also should say this, I don't fault anyone for their beliefs. Even from a Catholic perspective, I believe that faith is a gift. That's not something that can be attained via reason. And it's a mystery why people have faith at certain points in their lives, why they have it, why they don't. Like it's complex about why they lose it. It's like it's very mysterious process. So I'm cool with whatever. I'm just explaining from a Catholic viewpoint that from a Catholic viewpoint, you never have a psychological experience that's not also spiritual. It's kind of like when you think of your psychology, you never have a thought without emotion. Like we have to break it down into thoughts and feelings and will and, and a body, but like it's all one experience at one time. So from a Catholic viewpoint, it's experientially, it's always occurring. I'm talking to you, but I'm also relating to God at the same time. Or it has like, there's an implication or a consequence or a relevancy to what's going on as we're talking right now for my spiritual life and my relationship with God. I also think that, people's psychological experiences, especially in their home life, has a strong influence on their faith later on. The first experience we have of God comes from our parents. So all the stuff you say about your parents as a kid, will you protect me? Will you guide me? Will you nurture me? Will you provide for me? Right? And the answer to those questions is really important. And not that it's ever explicitly said that way, but implicitly through the relationship, that you say those same things about God if you believe in a monotheistic one God, or one would want to, if he's real, say those things to God. Like that is the monotheistic proposition that God loves you like a parent. Like Christianity is a Trinity. God sent his son and you're adopted into a relationship with the Father. He's a father to you. And so if you got a bad experience with your father, I mean, how does God the Father sound to you? Probably not so great, right? Right. Not so great, I do think that quite often the way religion is communicated by people is very problematic and filtered through their own psychology. I think this was kind of Andrew's point, is that one can use psychology under the guise of being religious to coerce, to control, to guilt trip, to manipulate. I mean, all the way to having wars over it, right. Which is about power, So there's certainly an unhealthy use of faith and spirituality and religion. But I don't know that I would separate it from my viewpoint. I wouldn't separate psychology and religion in that way. So yeah, I don't know if.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think one thing I'd add to that is that so one of my best friends, he's Catholic, and then I grew up obviously around a lot of Mormon people and a lot of really good friends that are Mormon. And I think one of the things that really shaped the way I view this question is because I was just sitting here thinking about a lot of those experiences with my friends, because I don't personally have those experiences. And a lot of times when I was talking with them, or they were going through hard times or trials, or they were having a hard time with their mental health, there was never a conversation with them where God wasn't brought up at the same time that I'm going through this hard trial or whatever it is, right? Or that I'm feeling this emotion, right? Or that I laugh because I think their best mental health like their best version of themselves also happened to be when they were also going to church
Sure.
most often,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Anyway, so I just have a hard time believing you can separate those two. You can be the best best Catholic or whatever and have just crap mental health, right? It's possible, I'm sure, but like the best version of a Catholic for you, right? And like I'm not saying that you can't like pretend and put on the shell, but like internally feel good and have a good relationship with God.
Yeah, it's
right?
a good point, and I think people try to have historically. I think nowadays is different. I think now people are looking to psychology as having all the answers. We're like psychologists are the new philosophers. Historically, people would go to the philosophers, but there is a time in which people try to answer psychological questions with religion, and that's a problem. Like not acknowledging that there's a psychological dimension to even to a religious experience. I mean, I just remember growing up when I was just as a child, there were moments when I didn't have a strong faith. I was just kind of a kid. And, I would just kind of express what I was going through from a kid's perspective and the pain and frustration or whatever, anger or sadness, whatever I was going through. And the answer was something like, offer it up to God, like pray about it. And it's like, this is from my vantage point at that time was like, this has nothing to do with God. Like now I'm like, actually it did have to do with God. Like, depending on where someone like is, like, they don't want to hear that. That's invalidating their psychological experience,
Right.
But I think as an adult, and I think the important part here is that like as a kid, I think like you view it or like, my 2 cents, I guess, right? It's like as a kid, you view it as like, oh, I'm praying and it'll all figure itself out. Whereas I think as an adult, right, it's that balance where I'm going to pray, but also I'm going to do the work, right? Like, and that work can be understanding, to take the advice, to, you know what I mean? That internal feeling and acting on it, right? And I think that's that important separation, is that when I have conversations with my closest friends around these topics, it's always like, did you pray? Did you get a feeling, or did you get like some insight or some answers? And then like, how did you act and how did you move from there to do something like that? And I think that's that tie-in, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too to me is when you said it'll all work out if I pray. Well, let's unpack what we mean by it will all work out. Like all work out according to the way you want things to go.
I think like a lot. I mean, everybody can have their 2 cents, but I think when I was a kid and I prayed, right? Like I think we all grew up in a religious area, and I think when I was a kid and I prayed, I just assumed that I was going to pray hard and then like God would figure it out for me.
Where did you learn that?
Like, I think I was told that. I think for the most part, I feel like I was told that like if you prayed and you were a good person, that like it would happen and it would figure out, right? And
in very concrete terms, like if I want $100, I can pray for it and I get my $100.
No, I think it definitely was more abstract, and it always is, right? I think that definitely is, but I think it was very much like a this person succeeded or do well because they prayed enough, right? And they did what they were supposed to do at their end, right?
I see. So good things in life will happen to you if you pray.
Right. And the things that you want, right? Like, I think those two things, right? I don't think you got $100, but I think if you wanted money, right? Like you wouldn't pray about money, but you'd pray about success or being able to work hard enough. Like sometimes it was the good end, right? You'd pray to like have the strength, right? Or the knowledge, right? Like the prayer to kind of, get where you want to be, right? I think that was probably the healthy version of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, I think when I was a kid, I definitely was always like, okay, like I think when you're a kid, you definitely pray for little stuff. Like I want this for Christmas or whatever it is. But
you're in very concrete terms when you're a child. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. But yeah. And then later it becomes a little more abstract, but even on an abstract level, I think that happened as a kid too.
Yeah. I think that's really common among Christian circles. And within Catholic circles, I don't think that's what the Catholic faith actually teaches. What like the Catholic faith, with all due respect, it's a Protestant theological principle. They call it like the I forget what the title, the name for it is. It's like the gospel of wealth, or the gospel of, I forget what it is. Forgive me because I don't know what it's called, but it's this idea that like if I pray and I'm a good person, good things will happen to me in this life. And like that's not what the church teaches. Like, I mean, like the Catholic Church, the model from a Catholic perspective is that like, well, Christ was crucified. Like it didn't quite work out in this life for him, you know? It's so there's this idea that it does work out ultimately. It does work out ultimately in the next life. Sometimes prayers are answered not in a way that you expect. Sometimes good is drawn from suffering in a way that is not something you can anticipate. So in the sense, it always does work out. But suffering is a part of the human experience from a Catholic perspective. It's deeply interwoven. I mean, the difference, like oftentimes you see Protestant crucifixes, they're not a crucifix. They're a cross. A crucifix, Catholic is like, here he is, like blood coming out. Life is filled with suffering. And when you're in a dark moment, that's what you want to see. You want to have a God that can suffer and that suffers and can identify with how hard it is for you. Like a Catholic view would say he came to suffer with us, not to take all suffering away. Ultimately, yes, in the next life, but this life is filled with suffering and we can draw meaning from it. We can draw good from it. The worst thing that could ever happen, the Son of God was killed. From that was the greatest thing that could ever happen, which was salvation. And that moment happens in our lives over and over and over again. So from a Catholic viewpoint, suffering is a little bit different. It's not like you just pray and you're a good person, you don't suffer anymore, or life's like things are going to go your way. Just we know from experience that doesn't hold up. Bad things
will get better, right? I think that's part of that, right?
But we all die. So like how?
But genuine question. Like I think and this is why I'm asking. Is that like my understanding is that if you did pray and do the work, right? I think there's a two combo there. Yeah. That it would get better, right? And in this life too. That like whether it be better. Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Like the strength to go through those trials, to go through all of those things, right? Because a lot of right? Like I don't think anyone's promised the equalizer if you all pray and work the same the same amount, right? Like that'd be nice, right? But like I think my understanding, right, is that if you pray in almost any Christian religious, right, like your life will be maybe slightly easier, although it is way harder than the other because you have the strength, right, and or the will or the intellect or whatever it is to make it through, right?
Your relationship to suffering changes.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm gonna throw you in the hot spot, in the hot seat for a second, Andrew. When you're talking about you playing a tank, and it was, I know I sat there after raids with you while you just unloaded your frustration with people, and I totally get it. I'm not invalidating that, but you endured that suffering because you loved people.
Yeah, ultimately, yes. And
so that's what we're. Go ahead. No, please.
So me complaining about my frustrations is more or less like it could have gone better. It could have been easier for people. It could have been this. It could have been that, because the ultimate goal is for it to go smoothly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I mean by a changing, shifting relationship to suffering. It's not hard to suffer. The worst thing in the world is meaningless suffering.
Right.
That's the worst thing. Suffering's not the worst thing. It's suffering that doesn't have meaning. If you're suffering because you love someone, you're choosing to suffer, well, now your relationship to suffering has changed. Can you discover meaning in your experiences? And I think from a Catholic perspective, that's what is offered. That your suffering can be informed with meaning. It's not as, I mean, I don't, I don't want to besmirch other faiths or Christian faiths. I just can't speak for their perspective. And I know it is common to have that view that like my life will go well if I pray and I'm a good person. It's just, that's not a Catholic viewpoint. It's not. Okay. So you guys were raised in the most traditional of Mormon context, and none of you guys are Mormon.
No.
Zero.
Is that true of the whole family?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even parents?
Well, so clearly it's not like we've had a conversation to where we're like, hey.
No one is a practicing religious person in our entire family.
That doesn't mean they're not religious.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think like our dad is probably. I think our dad believes in God and
I see.
like a Christian, idealism. But
well, I believe in God as well. I just there's a huge dynamic in our family as far as religion goes, but no one really talks about it. No one really asks about it. You know what I mean? Just because it's just not one of those things that they like to talk about, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't want to talk about it if it was originally
not in a bad way. It's just not something that gets brought up. Yeah,
but it was brought up, right, when you were young, because you guys were all
right.
So when did you notice a change?
So it was with Andrew, actually. That's where I noticed a change, and I was upset about the change. Andrew was the last one to get baptized, and it stopped with me. I was so mad.
They looked at Dalton. Nah.
Well, there was no reason, it was just like, there was no reason to be mad necessarily. It was just the stigma of like, Andrew gets to get baptized today. And it was just like, when do I get baptized, dudes? Still waiting, I just asking, but yeah. So I think the shift it stopped with Andrew, with him being the last one to get baptized. I think that was the big shift of just the parents understand, or agreeing with each other. They come to a mutual like, hey, we're not going to be forcing this on the kids. We're going to go let them do their thing, and then boom.
What was the catalyst for that change?
I had no idea.
Sorry, what did you say, Andrew?
I think moving to St. George was a huge catalyst. It took us away from it, really. So, like, we stopped, let's say, practicing it when we were out there still, but we were still surrounded by it. So it was still a day-to-day thing. Moving to St. George kind of changed all of that. Go ahead.
Was your question? I mean, because what was the catalyst in the parents doing that to us, or like, you know what I mean?
I mean, wherever it's, I just know that you guys came from a very like Mormon background, and now no one believes. So I'm trying to make sense of how we got from there to here. So is it the parents, or is it like?
I think it was the cool thing of them not throwing it down our throats. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I personally believe a lot of families that are religious, whatever you want to do it, that is for sure shoved down their throats.
Forced, controlled.
Correct. Especially with the community. It's really, really effective that way. But then the parents, I think that this is one, I'm super happy they did it, truly. But I'm glad they didn't do that to us, And however they, mentally shifted that and how they decided that, I have no idea, but thank you.
I think it was the church itself that did it to its own people. Like, so it's very complex, but like pretty much there's a first ward and a second ward. So the first ward was started a long time ago, and their practices started becoming not as religious. It was started to get like really just
cultish,
controlling, culty, controlling and stuff. And so one of our grandpas, he was a big honcho in the church, and he decided he didn't want to be a part of it, and he wanted to keep teaching and practicing the church. So they created the second ward, and then so they moved out to Centennial Park, which is not too far away from Colorado City. And the first ward continued doing what they were doing, which is your Warren Jeffs type. I'm sure you've heard about Warren Jeffs. And I think the church, if you had a mind of your own and you kind of saw what they were doing, they just kick you out for.
Were there problematic practices that people were pushing back against?
Oh yeah,
besides
there's
just
a lot of sketchy stuff going on,
scandals and things.
I think when you think about like extreme Mormonism, that's like all of that stuff, and the reason that they decided to have like a second ward.
But I think people are just getting fed up with it, and I think our parents were some of them, and even some of maybe their parents too. I don't really know, but they were just kind of over it. Moved to St. George, and they were like, "If you guys want to continue doing it, great. If you don't worry about it." Like it's.
I'm surprised though. I'm really surprised that not one of the kids though was like, I'm still practicing.
That is pretty rare, honestly. That is pretty rare that like I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of dad sides kids. I think my 2 cents, right? And we all have our own 2 cents and our own two different like opinions on why. I think my 2 cents, it was probably because of our dad. A lot of my dad's side of our dad's side of the family didn't go the religious route. Our mom's side is still very much religious. So our mom's side throughout there's tons of religion still there. But I think almost all, not all, but almost all of our dad's side is like out of that.
Yeah,
religion.
that makes sense. I mean, there are studies out there that show that the faith of the children is by far influenced mostly by the faith of the father of the family.
And I think that's what happened. I think our dad was. I talked to my mom a little bit about this, but I think our dad was really, really sick and put up with a lot of the crap he was dealing with being there. I mean, my mom was too. I think it was mutual, but I think my dad was, and you know, he moved us over to St. George, and that's how I also think about it is post before and after St. George. Yeah,
it makes sense too, right? Because mom represent like we came from our moms, like literally physically inside of like mom is me. I am mom is home, mom is self, mom is like comfort, security. Dads represent the world. Dads represent the other, like the thing that is different than me, that thing out there. So when you think of like religion and God, God is that thing that's different. And if dad can make that cool or demonstrate his belief in that, then you go in the direction of dad. But if dad isn't into it, then you're kind of free to make up your own mind.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
What do you think the best part of the faith is, the Mormon faith is? Is there any part of it that you've carried with you that you think you're grateful for?
Like manners, ethics. There's a lot of good things. Like, you know, growing up around my grandma's house, like you work hard and you have manners and you respect your elders, you respect people around you. It just teaches you to be a good human.
Yeah.
And you grow up to be someone respectable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I think family is probably the biggest one. I think like living in Salt Lake, which is fairly like, you know, probably the least Mormon place in Utah. There's still a good amount of Mormons, but probably the least Mormons. I think people are still very surprised by how connected and close I am to my family and how much I still go back to family and how big and important it is to me. I think they're always constantly like, you know, like why, and you know what I mean, or whatever. But yeah, for me, I'm super grateful I grew up in Utah. I'm super grateful I have a lot of the values that Utah brings and that we grew up with, and just the same ones Andrew talked about, plus family, plus you know, a lot of the Christian values. Honestly, I like, and that's why I don't think I have that like negativity that a lot of like atheists do. It's because I think I benefited a lot from the Christian values.
That's cool. Dalton, what about you? Anything cool about the Mormon faith for you?
You know, manners and the respect. And then family for sure. But yeah, no, I to carry with myself, I would say those for sure.
That's
but
cool.
yeah, no, and then I just have a different view of religion and whatnot. So I just yeah.
You don't like religion? You don't.
I'm super glad it is a thing in the world because it gives people direction, goals. You know, to hopefully teach the family or the love and the respect for other people. You know, and try to have something to look forward to. But you know, depending on how bad we want to get into it, I think it's a small cult a little bit, you know.
Say it.
Yeah, it's a small cult in my opinion, but it's a cult. I mean, if it, as long as we can
all religions are a cult.
Sure, I think so.
They're an effort to.
And when I say cult, you know, there's bad ones, and then there's, you know, we can say good ones in a sense, you know, little groups. But you know, however we want to put that, we can say the cult term for religion, just religion, the good ones, and then the cult, bad, whatever. I'm glad there's religion for other people.
Would faction be a better word?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I think there's a lot of negative connotations, so I was just curious.
Well, I'm wondering if you mean that by cult you mean religions are basically designed to control people.
Correct.
Okay. So that would cult would be the appropriate word though, if that's what you believe.
But I mean it's good because it gives people direction. You know, like hey, stay on the good and narrow path.
Yeah.
Treat others good, but then it's like, why does someone need to teach you that? Why is that just not a thing? Because I think it's naturally a human thing. I think, we want to be social with each other, and it's like, why can't we just be social, nice to each other, just like without having a title to each other?
Yeah. So you think it's part of the human condition to be like oriented towards the good and what is good for other people?
For sure.
But it's like human nature.
And I think it's mainly for like, for people, but like clearly it's mainly for family, which is your family can be extended to where, it could be your tribe.
Yeah.
Of whether it's village and then bigger and bigger and bigger. But as a bigger plan or whatever, it's like it clearly stops little baby wars with other cultures or tribes, So I think it's all around a good thing, but yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Let me ask you guys one at a time, and we'll just go back in the direction that we just came from. So we'll start with you, Dalton. What are you working on in yourself right now? Are you working on anything? Or do you think you're just a finished product? You're best in slot, bro.
What I'm working on with myself right now, understanding other people. Trying to, put myself in their shoes and like, why do you think differently than me?
Like empathy?
Like that you think differently than me, but you are. Why? Because my way is the right way. And if you're not thinking like me, dude, then we gotta, you got a problem, not me. So I need to figure out why you have a problem.
It's so interesting to me because you do not come across that way. Really? So it's interesting. It's interesting to hear that that's what goes on between your ears and or within your heart that you're wrestling with, and that you come to relationships thinking that your way is the right way, and you're working on seeing other people because, like, to me, I've always experienced you as very open-minded, very flexible, very inviting.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is the way I am for sure. But it's like, when I'm thinking of like with the problems where I'm at right now, or quote problems, it's like, let's just say like, I have this one goal where I think, saving up for a house, and it's like, I'm seeing it that way. Whereas, my significant other, which, Mariah, I love her so much. She wants to live in the moment. And it's like, can we think like, maybe 5 years down the road? Is that cool? I love how spontaneous you are. Love you to death. But chill out on thrifting, please.
Yeah, but you're just talking about every romantic relationship there is.
Oh, for sure. And I still don't understand why I don't understand it. I'm just like, yeah.
But this is the beauty. But this is the beauty of your relationship, because neither of you are right or wrong.
100%.
And you pull on each, as a complementarity where you pull on each other to grow in this area. You probably need to be a little bit more spontaneous to live in the moment. She probably needs to plan a little bit better.
I know. And that's what I'm trying to understand right now, where it's, why can't you be spontaneous when I'm spontaneous, and then when I want to save money, you save money, But it's a
when you're in a relationship, it's so interesting when those early phases and you're in that puppy love phase, and it's really just about you and that other person and connecting and emotionality. So wonderful. You don't realize that sooner or later it becomes about building a life together.
Yeah.
A shared life.
For sure.
Like they're like a business partner, like not exclusively. There's still the romance and the emotionality, but that's a huge dimension of your relationship that's not there in the beginning. Like learning how to work together to achieve goals. Woo. Not easy.
I feel like I'm in charge of the financial department, and I got boss lady spending all of our money, is, hey, we need to focus on that department, my dude. Come on.
Well, one thing I know about you and your spending habits, because we played World of Warcraft together, is you are very patient.
Yeah. No, I think that's
I would
very,
go to the auction hall and want to buy something right now, and you just
you gotta hold out,
negotiate
Boach.
and wait and
You
hold
gotta
out,
hold,
and
bro.
you're so patient. You're not willing to. You're not jumping on spending at any point.
Dude,
You're
it's gonna go
just
down, bro. It's gonna go
wait,
down. All right.
waiting for the moment.
Yep. No, I do think that's a big strong suit of myself is patience. I feel like
Yeah.
it's big of me, but that's me, dude.
That's cool. Logan, what are you working on?
I think I'm constantly trying to think of like my 3 pillars, which are just like emotionally, physically, and then intellectually. And so I think I've got one for each for me personally. And I don't have the spiritual one, that's calling me there. So those are kind of my 3.
Mhm.
So I think when it comes to like emotionally, I'm working really, really hard on communication in my relationship. And it's funny because we basically already brought it up, but a lot of that ends up being more, like this when I'm angry, or when I have those emotions, and being more vulnerable and being able to communicate with my partner
Yeah.
about what I'm truly feeling rather than, what's on the outside.
Okay. Cool. And physically, what are you working on?
I gotta get my deadlift back up. I got my deadlift back up to around 700.
Okay.
That's the goal right now. My bench and squat are doing pretty well. I gotta get my deadlift back up to around 700. So
Okay. What was the other one? Intellectually?
Yeah. And so that one's I'm doing a lot of work with large language models like AI, right? Stuff like that. So I'm really working on trying to do better at, I've got my book here for large language model processing and
Logan GPT.
yeah.
Nice. Andrew, what about you? What are you working on in yourself right now?
A big one is patience and gratitude.
Gratitude. Say more about gratitude.
I tend to look for the next thing because it's always over the next hill, right? It's always over the next, and every time you get something, it just doesn't ever feel good enough, and it doesn't feel like you're there. So that's an internal problem. There's nothing wrong with the steps that you're taking, because taking steps is awesome in itself. But if you can't take the time to slow down, appreciate it, and live in the moment, those steps mean nothing. I mean, it's not good.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, 10 years go by and you're just like, where the hell did that time go? But if you're not living present, it's meaningless.
You ever looked into mindfulness?
I will now.
Yeah, mindfulness. We have our own version. We have Catholic mindfulness where we baptize it, but mindfulness in general comes from Buddhist thought and made its way into psychology. But it literally trains you to rewire your brain to live in the present moment. There's
I would love.
I won't go into it too much right now, but if you're living in a state of doing instead of a state of being, and you're running down the path, if there's a perceived threat at all times, right? Then you're just doing. So if you're running down a path in a jungle and a tiger's chasing you, are you thinking about the beautiful flowers on the side of the path? No, probably you're only thinking about that tiger, right? So if you like, that's your
the fight or flight type stuff.
Yeah, it's fight or flight. That part of you gets activated, and the sympathetic. That's what I was gonna say. The sympathetic nervous system versus the oh my gosh, it's too late.
Parasympathetic?
Yeah, parasympathetic and sympathetic. I forget which is which. It's so late for me right now, but whatever the one that gets you ready to fight, that's when you're in the doing state of mind. That's why people, like, when they're stressed, they have like stomach problems because your digestion is affected if you have to fight something, whatever. Right. Well, mindfulness literally rewires your brain. It's a lot of work. You got to put in the practice, but if you do it, it really helps you to be where you are. And it's very, very de-stressing. This is a very evidence-based technique. It's good stuff.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to cure is stress and anxiety, which is huge.
Yeah.
And being able to live in the present can help eliminate a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, but you can't just kind of do it in the like as a choice. It can't just be a choice. I'm going to be more present in the moment now. You kind of can, but you really need to rewire your neural pathways. You got to actually do the practice, and then you will learn how to be in the present moment more. And that's great.
It's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill to develop. Yeah. I also I had a conversation with a monk one time who asked me this question. He said, "Are grateful people happy, or are happy people grateful?"
chicken and egg.
Dude, you need to tell that monk chill out, dude.
No, there's an answer to this. There's an answer to this.
Are grateful people happy, or
Yeah.
are happy people
happy
grateful?
people grateful?
Yes.
I think happy people are.
I think it's grateful. Ooh.
Ooh, we get a difference of opinion. The correct answer is grateful people are happy. So it's a fool's errand to think like I will be thankful once I am happy. If you start with gratitude now, the byproduct is you are happy as a result.
Mhm.
That's why, when you think of AA in the rooms, in the step rooms, they have these gratitude lists where every day they write down a certain amount of things that they're grateful for. It generates good emotions. So you start with gratitude and that actually leads to happiness. So
And
I
it
love that you
falls
said,
down.
I love that you said gratitude is something you want to work on. And it's not exactly the same as being in the present moment, but it's related. Because when you stop and look around, you're like, wow, actually, my life's great. I love and am loved by so many people, and I can feel really good about that.
Exactly. And what's
Yeah.
the point of having the stuff that you want if you can't even enjoy it anyway?
Exactly. You're always chasing the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Boach?
What am I working on?
Yeah, dude. Dude, it's been 2 years since freaking we hung out, bro. You better have something, dude.
Yeah, perseverance. Starting this has been one of the hardest things that I've ever done. Starting this show.
Wow.
I decided to really delve into doing this about 4 months ago.
Dang.
4 months ago. I cannot tell you the amount of things that I've had to learn in so many different areas of knowledge in order to make this happen. Whether that's learning how to interview people better, learn how to interview different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's very different than, it's akin to, but it's different than psychotherapy, which I know how to connect with people through psychotherapy, but when a camera's on, it just changes things,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a skill. I've had to learn about hardware. I knew a little about hardware, but to video record, we have the benefit right now where it's all just one package. We're on software right now where everything's recorded online. But I have like a studio in my basement with multiple cameras and multiple mics, and it's a lot, like time codes and hardware. It's really intense. I had to learn video editing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole separate skill set that I didn't know anything about. I had to learn social media and how there's a difference between actual content and then the peripheral work, which makes that content seen by people. You can have crappy content and everyone sees it, and you can have awesome content that no one sees. Right. It's two different skills. It's all like how to spread, like get involved with a YouTube algorithm and how to, so people that's a whole new skill set, and on and on and on. And then all along the way, there's these moments. I uploaded a video to YouTube. I had to upload it 4 times. And it takes, depending on my bandwidth at the moment and what's going on on my internet, like anywhere between an hour and 3 hours. And then you come back to the computer and it's like, nope, it didn't upload. I can't tell you how many times along the way that there are these moments of frustration where I'm tempted to be like, why am I even doing this? Why am I doing this show? And I'm just like at this moment of doubt, and I get close to quitting, and then there's just something transcendent for me, because I don't know if I really made, it's probably implied in our conversation so far, but I haven't made it explicit to you guys. My reason for wanting to do this show is because I don't think we know how to talk to each other anymore in this world. And I think people cut each other off. This is reflected in cancel culture, and I'm not, and if there's connotations with that as if it's like some kind of liberal thing, cancel culture, I don't mean in that way. I just mean ghosting people, not being able to speak. And I want to show that the best people in my life have different viewpoints than me and different beliefs and political beliefs. We didn't even talk about politics today. I'm sure each one of you could go off on that. Politics, religious beliefs, psychological beliefs. That's why I start these shows with something totally unrelated to serious content. It's like, let's talk about World of Warcraft. I talk to people about fishing. I talk to people about whatever they're into, like we got to connect on that level first. That's why we're going to talk about a movie in a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there's something human about that experience where we can connect. And I just hate that dialogue has been shut down in this world. And I feel personally called as a mission to create space to have people be able to communicate again, because I do not think shutting down is the answer. I think all this tension and conflict in the world is corrosive and damaging, and it's not human. It's not healthy. You know, so I have such an eclectic social life, and I have people from all walks of life, and I don't want that like difference of values or beliefs or whatever to ever interfere with my ability to show someone that I love them and to experience love back too. Like I need love. I need that love, So
I freaking love that, man.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So that's perseverance for me, is like trying to keep that in mind when it's really hard and I want to quit. Like I still have a full-time job. I don't have all the time in the world to do this. And I just feel called to do it. And, at the end of the day and nights and weekends.
Learning it in such a short period of time that's crazy.
Well, it's the thing about God, He's helping me out. It does feel that way from my perspective. Whatever. I mean, people's beliefs are their beliefs, but it does feel like I feel called by God to do this. And I feel like it's amazing to me. You could look at all these many different circumstances which have led me here as coincidence only. If you don't believe, you could be like, well, that's just a coincidence. But if you believe, it's like, there's no way this could have been set up this way to have me keep going and have it be arranged in this way. And like, it just feels kind of crazy. It feels like there's something beyond me that's creating this. And hopefully it becomes popular. And I also always want to have, even if it becomes very popular, and I have Leonardo DiCaprio one week, like I want you guys on the next week. Like, I don't want to get away from real human relationships at a level that's like not dependent upon celebrity status or whatever, notoriety. Just real people. And I don't think there's a lot of shows out there where just real people are allowed space to express their perspective. That's super popular.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I want to make that popular. Like, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't everybody have a voice? And why shouldn't we still be able to connect around that voice?
I like it. I agree.
So, all right, let's talk about Lawless. I can't help but see the relationship between you guys being three brothers and this movie being about three brothers.
Whoa, what are you talking about, dude? That's crazy.
That was good.
What are you talking about?
Yes. I mean, it was a cool movie about three brothers who are obviously super tight. The bond around boys. It sort of feels like it's them against the world. Do you guys feel like that?
100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you feel like it's you guys together against the world?
100%.
Yeah, bro.
Yes. Yeah.
Say more.
Is it as nitty gritty? No, but I still feel that. Yeah, it's like there's nothing like brotherhood, man. There's nothing like brotherhood.
And it's like I feel like and I think the reason why I like it a lot, is because it's like there's two brothers that I get along with the most in the family, out of 5 boys total. Well, including myself, 5 boys total. But it's Andrew and Logan. Those are the two brothers that that I connect to the most. Whether that's an age gap or not, having whatever. But yeah, the movie's good, and it's just kind of puts you in that world of just like 3 brothers doing it all.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool that it's based on a true story too. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love history. I love based on true stories. I love going back and kind of seeing what was going on. It's super interesting.
Yeah. Well, you say, Logan?
I would say us growing up, it was us 3 packed together. Like when we slept on beds, couches, when we were put in in outfits, whatever it was us three.
I need
'Cause the
pictures.
next three
I need pictures of
were girl-
outfits.
Like I just no, I just like for real, like there was at the end there's three girls, but then there was us three boys, and then there was the older three, because there's 9 of us, and so I think we just being that kind of like middle 3 boys.
Yeah.
And even me, like I got paired with the girls a little bit sometimes. Andrew got paired with the older siblings a little times. But for the majority of the time, it was definitely just us three against the world. They would be doing troublesome and, shooting me, while I was running or whatever, but it was still us three. And yeah.
Just doing brother
Okay.
stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, whenever it was go out and do chores, it was, Andrew, Dalton, Logan go out and weed the yard, and just always kind of been a team.
Nice.
What'd you think of it though, Budge?
The brotherhood part of it?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was great. In some ways, I'm jealous of it, to be honest with you. In some ways, I'm
No brother?
I have 2 brothers, but we're 8. In either direction, they're 8 years apart from me.
Wow.
Oh.
So my older brother is 8 years older than me, and younger brother is 8 years younger than me, and we get along great.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship. I love them very much. There's no tension. It's cool, but it's not. We didn't go through the exact same thing together, like at the exact same time. We didn't like come up together. It was like different worlds. I mean, it's like almost like different generations, like 8 years.
Yeah.
It's like, we're like a decade apart. We grew up in different worlds. So I wish I had a brother that was closer to me in age, that I felt like I had that level of depth and closeness to. So I'm grateful that you guys have it, and I admire it. I think it's really cool.
Do we come off that way too, in your opinion? You know what I mean?
That you're close?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you guys are definitely close. It's one of those things where we've been so close over the years that I've even seen you guys, like your whole family, kind of fight with one another.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that there's something that like I could never touch. You know what I mean? There's a level of depth that like I know whatever you're going through, like it's not going to last forever. Like I'm not like going to even speak into any kind of argument that you guys are having with one another. Like it's so sacred. Like I like it would be foolish of me to even like dip my finger in that tension, because there's so much depth. And I don't mean just because you guys are arguing, but I mean just because I know that there's a level of closeness that like nobody outside of your unit will be able to access.
For sure.
So I always just see it like, I mean, it's just blood. I just know how it is,
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to see. And you see that with them. There's 3 brothers,
Yep.
Forrest the oldest,
Mm-hmm.
Howard the middle,
Mm-hmm.
Jack the youngest.
Yep.
Do you guys think that you relate to any particular brother? Do you think it lines up that way, or is it too different?
I don't think it lines up. Like I was trying to notice that with how it went or whatever the case, but I didn't see it line up with I'm not saying with like even the age of the brothers, whether it was Andrew, me, then Logan or whatever the case. I couldn't pin what brother was what. You know what I mean? I think it was just like the dynamic of the 3. That was just like how close they were, but how different they were.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's cool. What about you, Andrew? Did you see it?
I mean, I saw some similarities, but I think there's a good mixture of kind of all of the brothers spread throughout, if that makes sense. Like Jack being the youngest and experiencing some of the stuff. Like we all are Jack in a way, but also in certain times we're the older brother too. You know what I mean? It's not cut and dry, is what I'm saying.
I see. It was always kind of a blend of back and forth of roles growing up.
Yeah, because I mean, we're technically, us 3 are the middle of the family. We're like, there's 3 older siblings, and then there's 3 younger siblings than us 3.
Right.
So.
Right. But you're Logan. You're the youngest male, though.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's a unique position. You
just get beat up on.
Yeah,
first one, but
yeah, it's okay.
So that's a nice way of saying unique position. Go on. I imagine you were bullied.
Yeah, I think I had 4 older brothers that all were bigger than me up until a point, but that all, came down on me. I learned a lot from them now. And I think as an adult, right, it's always the case, right? As a child, it feels like the worst thing in the world, right? All your brothers are always beating up on you. You can never beat up on them. Always comes down on you. But as an adult, it's nice, right? Because you've got older siblings that you love.
So you don't think it's as clear cut as one of you guys having a little bit more of a tender heart like Jack?
I didn't even think Jack had it. Did Jack have a tender heart? Because I thought, I thought Forrest had a tender heart because like he couldn't show his emotions.
No, Forrest is more calm, collected, just kind of keeping it to the point. Jack is more in his emotions. He's more motion oriented than Forrest.
Yeah, correct. But I thought. No, keep going. Sorry, I apologize.
And then you have Howard, who's kind of a mixture of both, but he's a little bit more crazy side. He can be like Jack, or he can be like Forrest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought Forrest he had an emotional side to him. He just couldn't show it. He had to be he had to stay that fucking douchebag. Quote, or sorry for the language.
I started it.
But like you can see with his girlfriend, that he ended up sooner or later marrying.
Right.
And then
he has emotions, but he has to be the assertive kind of face of the brothers.
He couldn't show him because like it showed at the very end where like he's by that pond and because he's like, I'm not dancing in front of you guys, and he goes by the pond, he starts dancing a little bit, trying to loosen up, whatever, and then whatever. But I saw. Yeah.
Well, with Maggie too, he like every time she'd come towards him, he'd be like, Yeah,
didn't know what to do.
He didn't know what to say. He couldn't. The words didn't even come out.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will say though that I think Jack did have a tender heart. Remember, he couldn't shoot the pig. Remember the opening scene? I forgot about that. But that was to illustrate like how he was different than the two brothers. Remember, he's like shoot the pig, and he wouldn't do it.
Okay. I didn't compare.
So then the other brother came over and just
right. And later on, after Jack gets beat up, he sort of allows himself to get beat up, and then Forrest comes over to him and he's like, "What are you gonna do about this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you expecting us to help you? What are you gonna do?"
Well, and even when he was getting beat up, he's like, "My brother's gonna get you.
My brother's gonna get you." Right. And then Jack also said, "What if I'm not built like you? Yep. Like, I don't think I'm built like you and Howard." So I think it was at least the narrative. I mean, you find out over time that he's quite built like them, right? As the movie progresses,
correct.
His rage comes out. But I think for a long time there was that tenderness about him, which differentiated him from the other two. Although he had vision, though.
Mm-hmm.
He had vision.
Much differently than his other brothers.
He did. He was thinking big picture. Yeah. What'd you think about the legend that they can't die?
It was pretty cool.
I think that's what really helped them be as ruthless as they were, and just
resilient. Another word.
Yeah, and it also puts it in other people's heads too, and so it kind of creates this legend and puts fear into other people's hearts, which is what they wanted, especially in those times.
Yeah,
just having shootouts in the middle of town, like you want people to fear you.
Yes, and I think you're right. I think it made them bold and courageous, and they took more risks than they would have. Yeah, like their psychology, the belief created it, like influenced their choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they took risks as a result of it.
And it paid off for them.
If it was true, clearly because based on the true story, for however true, the part where like Forrest thought that he walked to the hospital with this throat cut, hilarious,
yes.
Funny, dude. Yes. Oh man, that was amazing.
And then Maggie's like, "No, I did that." He's like, "What?"
Leave it up to you to believe your own legend.
Yeah, dude. Oh man,
she cut him so deep with that. It was great.
He was rethinking everything. Like you saw in his head, he was just like, "Okay, whoop." It was funny.
Yeah, kind of cut him down a little bit.
Yeah,
kind of cut his ego.
Yeah, but also, what was so interesting about it was that point at the end, right at the end, the line from Jack where he's talking about what's happening after all the crisis, and then they go out and they live sort of a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack is saying, I think Forrest believed that he was invulnerable, but no one leaves this world alive. Put a statement. Nobody leaves this world alive. And in the end, it was something simple and some dumb luck that killed him. He slipped into the ice and got pneumonia and died. Mm-hmm. After all those crazy things he lived through, it's like
8 times.
It's something random like pneumonia because he was dancing drunk on like a patch of ice.
Yeah.
Just showing how random and confusing and difficult death can be.
Mm-hmm. Even just how difficult those times were too. Like, it's freaking insane. So the Prohibition was going around the same time as the Depression, right? So being able to sell alcohol was huge. Even though it was outlawed, and being able to pay off the officers and have their little gig that they had going. It was Wild Wild West, man.
Yeah, for sure. What'd you think of the females of the film? What'd you think of Maggie and Bertha? Yeah.
I think they were played very well. Specifically Maggie. I think she played that part really well, that actress.
Yes.
And she played such an important part in kind of Forrest's character progression, and just kind of how things just escalated. And Bertha, not as much. She didn't play as a big of a role in the movie as Maggie did.
I really liked her flirting with Jack, though. They had a nice little chemistry between the two of them. Like, she had a nice little twinkle in her eye, and like so did he. I thought their banter back and forth was really adorable, actually. Yeah.
Dude, the whole feet thing, I'm with him, man. If I got to pull my feet out in church and get a foot rub, that's kind of weird.
Dude, he had to go throw up.
I know.
Oh, okay.
But he'd also chucked, I don't know if it was because he chucked some alcohol before that too, and then went to the church or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because he was nauseated, but also having your crush take your shoe off in the middle of everybody and start rubbing your feet up. That's a little weird. Yeah. I'm with him. I'm out of there, dude. I'm getting out.
It was a nauseating scene. It was probably like a combination of all those factors. And him just probably really anxious taking that risk. I mean, he sat down in that chair. I couldn't believe the nerve. He sat down in the chair in the church. By the way, I thought that song that they were doing was really cool. And they were doing the beat, and there was some kind of hymn. I hadn't heard that before. I thought that was cool. But then he sits down, and they're all still praying and doing this stuff. And he just like takes something off the floor and just throws something right at her to get her attention. And you could just tell, like, from the beginning, she liked it, and he knew it. And she wasn't going to stick in that like traditional lane, those traditional values.
Right. Okay, I gotta know. The special agent guy, Charlie Rakes.
Yes.
He is like the epitome of someone that I just want to like. He bugs me so bad.
I think it was a haircut, dude.
No, just his whole mannerisms and just like he's the shit, you know what I mean? And like that
great
was
acting.
The perfect person to play that role.
Great acting.
Because it makes you want to come to the screen and punch him.
He was an amazing villain. Mm-hmm. And it was a strange like combination of factors where he was tough as nails, though. I mean, he was ruthless.
Yeah.
But they call him a Nance. Jack called him a Nance, and there was like this. It was like a feminine quality to him. Not really, but by the standards of that culture, that hillbilly culture, he had perfume. He spent all this time in his hair, like, slicking it back. He had a hard time. He seemed like he had a little bit of OCD. He wasn't okay with like his clothes getting dirty.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a dark villain. He was acted very well. He was scary. I thought he was scary. Like, I mean, when he entered the scene, you didn't know what he was going to do. Felt like he was very unpredictable.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I mean, it was just strange. But that one scene where the black woman is naked and she's like he had some kind of sexual encounter with her.
That's my interpretation.
Yeah, but she's like I don't know if you noticed, she was sitting on a newspaper.
Yep.
On the bed, and she's like kind of like shaking and like breathing heavy. Mm-hmm. Like it implies like some kind of strange sexual encounter, like strange sexual deviance that
Right.
that she was almost unwilling to do it, or like
Mhm.
he assaulted her. Like it just added to his whole creep factor, I thought.
Yep. For sure.
And I'm on the assault side. He definitely nothing there was probably consensual.
No.
He's
No.
just a creep. He's a weirdo.
Yeah, he was.
But he played that part so good, and that's what pisses me off.
Yeah, he was good. What'd you think of Floyd Banner? You know, he was the gangster from Chicago. Yeah.
I think it was. I like that character. I mean, especially just coming in with a Tommy gun and you know what I mean. Like, I run this town. If you see me, you better run. I thought it was cool that when he figured out who Jack was, that he was like, "Oh, sweet, come on into my office, and I won't kill you," you know. And then make sure you tell Forrest it wasn't me. So it's just they even put the fear in these gangsters that like, hey, these guys are untouchable. We got to make sure that we don't have no bad blood between them.
Yeah, he hit his
crazy.
henchman with a shovel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, last thing I need is a blood feud on my.
These crazy bastards coming after me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved when you first see him and he lights up that car with the Tommy gun and he just walks over and looks at Jack. Yeah, he just winks at Jack. That was great.
Jeez,
so cool.
Good movie all around.
Yeah.
It's solid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what'd you think about Jack? I mean, there's a lot to be said about that character. In some ways, like, I think in the beginning of the film, I thought this was a movie about Forrest and Tom Hardy, but as time went on, I was like, actually, no, this is a movie about Jack.
I think he plays. I think a lot of families have this where, especially in the older kids, they kind of follow their parents' influence a lot more, and they kind of do what has been done. And then as it comes down the line more, you start to see more rebellious behavior, and they start to become different versions of their family and more adventurous almost like. And that's kind of what Jack was to me. Is he wanted to run with the family business. He wanted to do what his brothers did, but he was just different. You know what I mean? And he needed to show that side of him and prove himself to his older brothers that like, hey, I know that you guys are gangsters or, tougher than me, but like I have something else that you don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Studies show that in terms of birth order, the further down the line you get, the more creative you get because you have to compete for resources. Whereas when you're older, there's less, there's more resources to be divided among less people. I mean, it could be like like attention, like emotion, like, dinner rolls, whatever it is. You have to be creative to try and get your needs met. So that like facilitates a kind of creative spirit and a creative way of approaching life. And so, yeah, for Jack, definitely he had vision. He saw something bigger than what was going on and what their regular practice was. And he thought, well, I'm going to make these bootlegger runs across county line and get us some real money. Yeah. He said, I can do it. I'm a driver. I can do it. The reason the only thing that's limiting me is the car that we have. And then he had the saddest character, Cricket. Yeah. Who was a genius.
Yeah.
Big time.
He was a genius.
Mad scientist.
Yeah. And he had a crippled leg and he had rickets as a child and it affected the way he walked. And there was a purity about him. And then obviously he was murdered.
Oh.
And that's when, which breaks your heart, but that's when Jack snapped.
Yep. That's where you saw the twist. Boom.
Yep. And he saw that because there was a purity. I think he probably, because he was not always accepted himself by his older brothers, because he was kind of pushed along. I think it gave him more of a tender heart for someone like Cricket, where, Cricket was kind of
wouldn't have done the same.
Yeah, he was kind of marginalized, and he wasn't treated with the respect that he deserved, and Jack saw that as like someone to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they had an awesome friendship.
Mm-hmm.
It was sad to see him go.
It's crazy that you guys said that though. Like as soon as he died, you just see this switch, boom, and it's just like it's on. No more games, and just headed straight towards pretty much his death, and he just didn't care.
Yeah, like 1 on 10. Like by himself.
Yep. Yep.
But
There's
he
so
just
much
wanted
rage.
a one-on-one.
Right. Yeah. And they did get
Which
some support.
ultimately he got.
Yeah, ultimately he did get, and he did get some support from the other bootleggers. Of course, his brothers came, but it became like a bigger battle than just 1-on-10. But he didn't know that at the time. He was just seeing red.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's 2 back-to-back lines, which I think you could take them in isolation. But they're both profound. And I think it's like kind of the core of the movie and the core of their spirit and their philosophy of the brothers. The first is, it's not the violence that sets a man apart. It is the distance that he is prepared to go. That's after Jack was saying, what if I'm not like you? What if I can't handle myself after he got beat up?
Yep.
And his brother says to him, it's not about the violence. It's the distance you're prepared to go. What do you think about that line?
I think it's vision. Like what sets someone apart from accomplishing things is vision and being able to set goals and accomplish things. Like in that particular case, I think, especially back then, you had to be pretty hard. Like you couldn't be a very soft person. So Forrest being the way he is, he doesn't seem like that kind of, like, he seems like hard-headed and like kind of like a dick, but you can tell throughout the movie that he has a big heart.
Yeah.
But he's willing to go far for his family to protect them, because that's what means ultimately the most is his family. So for him, that's how far he's willing to go, is to protect his family.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that line, Dalton?
I think Forrest, I think the 2 older brothers had to be the physical ones, like they had a vision clearly, but they were limited, in my opinion, to where it's like they had to be this physical. Hey, we had to stay here because this is what we can control. Yeah. And I think he said that to Jack because he wanted a bigger, vision or whatever the case, but he wanted Jack to be someone different than himself.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think the 2 older brothers had to be the violence, but then Forrest was like, hey, don't be like us, be someone else.
But be a man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely an encouragement and an affirmation to be a man, but you being a man, Jack, is not dependent upon your physicality.
Yep.
It's your character in dealing with, long suffering and dealing with, persevering in a difficult moment. And to your point, he even says that in one word, when Jack says, I'm not built like you. And he says, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He just says, that's all right.
Yep.
You don't have to be us, but you do need to be the best version of you.
Yep.
Any thoughts on this, Logan?
No, I think that's a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to try to go too deep on it, but like, I think that's a lot of like modern thought, right? Which is like this, like going from, this, like, how big can you be, how physical can you be? How much of a violent man can you be? Right. Into trying to, get to like what truly is like a man and like what is really going to actually like take you the distance. Right. Versus like, just being as big and as shell as you can be or whatever. So yeah.
Said the power lifter.
I enjoy it.
All right. And then the other line was, this line kind of gives me pause and I'm not sure I quite understand it. We are survivors. We control the fear. And without the fear, we are all as good as dead. I get the first half.
For that bloodline.
I mean, I get the first half. We are survivors. We control the fear. I get it. He's basically saying, control your fear. But then he says, without the fear, we are all as good as dead. So he's acknowledging that the fear. He's saying that it's good that the fear is there. That's what keeps us alive is mastering our fear. But I'm acknowledging that the fear should be there. We control the fear, and without the fear, we are all as good as dead.
I took it as situational for them because with them being immortal or whatever it is, people didn't want to mess with them. So if people didn't fear them, they would mess with them. So I think them controlling the fear in their area kept them alive from getting shot at or whatever it is.
Got you. So it wasn't
That's
their
how
fear.
I took that.
Yeah. So you were saying like he was talking about other people fearing them. It wasn't their interior fear. Yeah. Got you.
Because everyone in town did fear them. Everyone knew their last name. Everyone knew not to mess with them. These guys, you can't kill them. So just leave them alone. Let them do their thing. And even when the people tried to come in, was like, hey, you're going to start doing stuff by our own set of rules. And Forrest was like, get the hell out of here. We're not playing by your rules.
Yeah.
So I think them keeping the fear with everyone around them is what's keeping them alive.
Okay.
Yeah, I take that, I take that as a bigger picture, because I think you're scared of everything in a sense. Like you're always, I feel like you're always in a state of fear, to where it's like, whether you're always gonna have a job, your car's gonna keep going, bum with relationships, da 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 da. And if you're not always like changing, or like to fix that fear, then it's like then you're not alive.
Yeah.
You're just dead. You're just doing nothing.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's the way I took it.
Yeah, I like that take.
But yeah, for sure, the best line that I freaking, when Jack said that to, or excuse me, when Forrest said that to Jack, that was, dude, when he said that, oh man, not the fear one, the be better than us, pretty much. Loved it.
Overall, what would you rate it? It's a little older movie. It's not like brand new, but
yeah, it was 2012. I looked it up. I like the movie a lot. I mean, in some ways, it's dramatized real life, so you can't really critique the story too much because it's what actually happened. you know, I thought Forrest was going to die at the end, but he didn't. At least the end of the story proper.
Yeah.
When they showed their life afterwards, they didn't really do a good job of aging them, because I did a little wiki research afterwards. I did a little wiki, and Forrest died, and he fell through the ice and got pneumonia when he was 65. Oh, so he lived a long life after that.
Oh, wow! And even back then too, like
yeah. You know how old Jack was when he died?
How old?
Early 90s.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So they lived a long life. And there's an article I read by the grandson of Jack, and he wouldn't ever talk about that time. But Jack asked, he asked his grandfather one time whether or not the story was true, like the shootout at the bridge, and all Jack did was just like lift up his shirt and show the bullet wound, and then he closed it and didn't say anything.
Oh,
it's like
dude.
It's that whole culture, right? It's that kind of like stiff upper lip, Southern, rugged, masculine, strong, silent type, and
right.
that doesn't need to boast, but that handles their own business. I mean, it's great. I mean, from a male perspective, a masculine perspective, I obviously think that Tom Hardy's character Forrest was. I mean, he's badass. He was just so cool. He was so in control of himself. He was extremely competent. He was great. I mean, when he was around in a scene, you kind of felt safe. He was going to handle it. Mm-hmm. Howard was just such an interesting character. He's kind of a mess.
He's kind of a grenade. He's just didn't know what was going to happen.
Right. He's he's a loose cannon. And then Jack was awesome too. I would love to see. I love to see what Logan's point too about the modern idea of masculinity, which transcends the idea of just being a physical brute. Like you could be a man in a different way. And I thought Jack's character really did portray that he was definitely a man. He was. I mean, he wouldn't just knock people out with brass knuckles and just win everything via muscle. But I really appreciated his character. I thought Shia LaBeouf was acted very well. It was a cool place to hang out. This movie was like a cool place to be. I enjoyed being in it. I like, if it was the art style or the acting, whatever it was. Like as soon as it started, I was like, oh, okay, I can settle in. This is a cool place to be. It's like how I feel about Ocean's 11. Like when that movie starts, I'm happy to be there. I'm happy to hang out with those characters. I'm happy to be with them. So I liked it. I did like the film. And I think if there was and I think if there was a theme or like a moral, if there was a theme or moral to the story, it was that death is actually random. It's random. And the legend that they couldn't die did, as you said, create a psychological buffer and created a unique experience to where they were doing things that were so memorable that there's a movie all these years later. They took atypical risks because of the legend, but still there was no truth to the legend that they were invincible. Or they couldn't die. Like no one leaves this world alive. And I thought it was great. I thought it was very entertaining. I think they could have looked a little bit more into the morality of it. They dipped their toe in that a little bit at times when Jack said, "I'm just doing what any good man would do in these tough times." But it was against the law.
Yeah.
It was corrupt. All the officials were getting in on the action, collecting money, and then Prohibition was over, and then they just lived a straight edge life right after that. Right. I felt like that could have been teased out. You're just dropped in the middle of the story where it's just happening everywhere and everyone's doing it. I wonder what, like, it would have been interesting to see the lead up of what influenced them to make the decision to be a bootlegger and to start, making the alcohol and how people were responding to that, but I mean, I'm just picking nits here. It was a great film.
Good job, Andrew, recommending it, man. That was good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been awesome. Anything you guys want to plug? Makara, World of Warcraft guilds.
I gotta plug. I gotta plug IO, bro. I gotta give IO the wink. Got you, bro.
I appreciate
it. Thanks, Bo, for having us on.
Yeah, thanks guys for coming on. Really appreciate it.